good afternoon or evening or whatever, wherever you are, maybe even morning. Welcome to Breaking Chains. Nice to see everyone. What we are here to do today is do a full read through of the RICO ruling from Pennsylvania by Judge Kelly Eckel. And hello, Music City Mom, and everybody else, peekaboo. Thank you for reminding people to please streak to the like button. My mod will be in here at intervals reminding everybody to please hit the like button and sharing the membership link if you would like to join. I would like to note that I did receive some gifted memberships from One Shot last night. So One Shot, you, my dear, are definitely a breaker of chains. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So we're going to read through. You're the only important one. I'm just kidding. So what we're going to do is read through this RICO ruling, which came down in April, and we're doing it with the benefit of the hindsight. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the 10 Breaking Chains memberships. The people who get this are going to be part of our Breakers of Chains. We're going to break chains over here. We want to stop that wheel from continuing to move in the same direction that it is. Got to rethink our thinking and our words and what we say to people in general and on the internet, and stop using warped old thinking. That's what we're here to do. And oh, did Granny get one? That's awesome. I can't see it from this side. I'm on the StreamYard side, so glad that Granny got one, because since this case is pertaining to her. We're going to read this with the hindsight of knowing that after this ruling was filed, the plaintiffs have attempted to appeal this ruling. They submitted a notice of appeal in the wrong place. They didn't even notify the Judge Kelly Eckel that they were filing this appeal. They hadn't even answered the motions from the plaintiffs about their punitive damages. Literally, this lawyer who is supposed to be shepherding this case through the courts has I don't remember him meeting one deadline. If most court deadlines were missed. And then they submitted for this appeal, and the appeal was denied because, surprise, 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 the plaintiffs hadn't submitted paperwork on time, that their docket entries on time for the appeal. That's like the beginning of the appeal. You have to basically put down in a statement what this case is about, what the appeal is about, summarize it. It's like a complaint in the appeals court. They didn't submit their docketing statement. They had to be prompted into responding, and their response was essentially, the dog ate the homework. My dog ate the homework. Oh, I'm glad you like that. I'm glad you like that, Music City Mom. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, but I want to remind you all of what the most important thing about all of this is that, it's all about me, and it's about me not wanting to ever have to eat olives, because I put my skin in the game, and I said that if the plaintiffs win any part of this case, I will eat an entire jar of olives. And I was so celebratory, when the ruling came down, and it was determined that I wouldn't have to eat olives in that case. But now the plaintiffs have appealed, and they're also asking that the appeal was denied, but now the plaintiffs have once again put in a new motion into the appeals court saying, hey, the dog ate my homework. Or in other words, I was on I need a bereavement break because my father-in-law died and I was caretaking him from May 1st to June 16th, something like that. And so, so that motion has been submitted, trying to reinstate the appeal. And in response, the defendant's lawyers, Jessica's and Stephanie's lawyers, have submitted responses basically saying, wait, that's weird, because if Mr. Lesniak wasn't able to file any paperwork on time in this case, why was his criminal docket so busy? Why was he spending so much time showing up for court in other cases? Hello, everybody coming in, and welcome. So, and they also listed all of the times that the plaintiffs have engaged in basically judicial misconduct throughout the course of the case, and it's many, many, many. So, also we have two different plaintiffs now saying that they're going to continue to go legal, basically against the same people. Hey, Barbecue Lady. So Barbecue Lady is one of the defendants here, who has an awesome lawyer, and Granny's lawyer is awesome as well. So, but even though Barbecue Lady and Granny have been put through absolute hell with this lawsuit, even though they had to raise money, to defend themselves, we all know that the most important thing is me not having to ever eat olives, right? So I'm going to launch a fund, a don't make Lynn eat olives fund, to ensure that this never happens, because this is the most important thing. And if anybody on the plaintiff's side makes me eat olives because they're fucking around with the courts, well, I'm going to sue them for making me eat olives, and I'm going to do a legal fund for it. So I'm just warning you. That's fair warning. Just kidding. Yeah. So, and I did up it to a truckload of olives, if this appeal goes through. So my skin is even more in the game, and this is the most important thing, way above and beyond the issue, Granny and Barbecue Lady having to spend collectively up to $100,000 to defend themselves against poopy words being said on the internet. And hello to you as well, Granny. I heard hello to you as well. So we are going to go through this. We're going to go through this reading because it appears that the people of the internet who are paying attention to this case who side with the plaintiffs seem to really forget how damning and how definitive and how thorough this ruling is. So we're going to read through the whole thing so that we have a full accounting in one place of what this ruling looks like in contemporary time, as we look and we see that Brittney J is raising $10,000 for some sort of legal action that we don't know about yet, but is probably based on the same claims. Basically, poopy words were said at me, and now I'm scared and I need to raise a fund. Or Tony saying that he's going to sue Granny and is attempting to sue Granny in Oklahoma, without realizing that this definitive Pennsylvania ruling could have an enormous weight in anything that might happen in Oklahoma. And that's yet to be seen. We're not going to talk about Tony's case because it's not a thing yet in my mind, but at least officially. So before we get to this, I do want to invite, if they want to, no pressure, Granny and or Barbecue to come up while we're reading this so they can fill in any things. Oh, interesting. Okay, and my last recollection is you saying that you are going to fight this. So it's on, baby. It's on. But I'm not going to... Hey, Cinnamon Girl, nice to see you. I'm not going to give Tony any advice by stating exactly why I think his claims are DOA. But I do plan to cover this case as it goes along at the right time. So, I shared the StreamYard link. You two are welcome to come up and edify as I read along and say anything that, correct me on anything I might be saying wrong about the facts of the case or whatever. And I just want to have this on the record. They got me while changing my tires. Oh, good. Okay. Attorney retained. So again, in light of these continued frivolous actions that the plaintiffs continue to do against the defendants here for saying poopy words on the internet that are not actionable, in my opinion, we're in. It's on. It's on. So, all right, let's bring up, we got Barbecue Lady here. Hello, Barbecue Lady.
Hey, hoping Granny joins me too if she's not busy. I actually just read through this for the very first time from beginning to end last night. It was the first time in 3.5 months that I've actually read it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some very eye-opening things that I've circled on my own photocopies.
Oh, okay. Well, feel free to break in on the things that you circled, just to edify. But I just think it's very important to look at this ruling in hindsight. It's been a few months now. It had, and they're continuing to do the same shit, thinking that they're going to get a different result, right? And yeah. I want if any of the plaintiffs are listening, I want you to understand that any of the claims you're continuing to try to make are exactly like the claims that you shot your wad with this RICO. You went big or go home at the very beginning. You shot your wad with attempting to get legal consequences for poopy words being said on the internet. And it failed. It failed really, really bad. I mean, it backfired so much that's why I believe that you're continuing to threaten and file lawsuits. And now we have an actual official new lawsuit. And let's not forget that Barbecue Lady has a restraining order on one of the plaintiffs because of the things that he was saying about her and her child on Twitter.
Two of them.
Oh, two of them. Okay.
Nick and Hong both have active protective orders.
I didn't know. I thought it was just Hong. Okay, so it's Nick and Hong. Nick has also been censured from speaking about the Proudfoots in any way, shape, or form online. So he can't touch the topic. And that's because of, him breaking parole in the process of his fuckery with this case, in my opinion. And I think Steve Fisher also attempted to has a temporary restraining order on Hong. But Hong didn't show up for court or hasn't been served or whatever. So it's unclear as to, how active that is or how legit that is. But anyway, these people they actually go way above and beyond saying poopy words on the internet. They attack in real life. And this RICO lawsuit is as fucking real life as it gets. Okay. Because you're going after people's reputations, their money, and you're also doing it clearly with malice, because you open it up trying to being as aggressive and as extortionary. I don't even know if that's a word, but they were basically trying to extort these people into just stopping talking about Seth. Poor Seth. Shaggy, thank you so much for the gifted memberships, and welcome to Drogon's Fire. And also thank you for helping us break chains of stupid people. Break the chains that constrain our brains. Hey, is that you eating olives? No, I'm kidding. Cute sunglasses. Oh, and Flo's been a member for 4 months. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. Here's your little prize. Here's your prize. So, that's basically the intro. Oh, Barbecue got one of the memberships too. You got a membership, Barbecue.
Thank you so much, because I was trying to figure out how to do it. Hold on.
Yeah, it's caused these people went as real life as you could get. Going to the courts, saying these people did terrible things that they didn't do, okay? And then causing them to have fear in their own community. They intentionally exacted emotional damage on these people and their family members trying to get through all this shit. So that's why we're going to read through this ruling again. Nick shot his wad thinking he was going to get him the internet clout he's been seeking for years now. Yeah, I feel like he was trying to get himself that Netflix documentary that he's been trying to get for years and keeps failing at. He tried to use Bill Cosby for it. Now he tried to get Dog the Bounty Hunter and Sebastian Rogers' case into a documentary. That's what I feel has happened. And so the entire thing was filed with malicious intent. And you can see that from the moment that they launched this lawsuit until now, because they're still attempting to do the same thing. What were you going to say, Barbecue?
I was just going to ask if there's too much background noise, because I'm in a room with an air conditioner. So, okay.
No, I can hear a little bit, but it's not bad at all. Exactly, Granny. Imagine being teenagers and knowing your mom's being sued by Dog the Bounty Hunter and praying it's not your local news. Praying it's not on your local news. My daughter was mortified daily. Yeah. I mean, these assholes. And now they're like, oh, the dog ate my homework. They can't meet a deadline to save their lives. Thank you for being a member for 3 months, Kraken. So all of this, I feel, was done with such malicious intent, and I think the court is recognizing this in these papers. So why don't we just not have me trying to encapsulate it? It's all said in this document. It's all said right here. Everything you need to know about this case and their reason of filing it is covered by this judge in this document. It's so thorough and it's so damning. So with that, I think I will go ahead and anything else you want to say before I start reading?
No, I'm good. I have my printed 26 pages in front of me as well.
Okay. So here we go. Order granting defendants' motions for dismissal and requiring plaintiffs to pay defendants' attorney's fees and costs under the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute. And now this 17th day of April 2025, upon consideration of the motion pursuant to filed by I'm not going to read all the letters and stuff like that and numbers of the cases. Filed by defendant Stephanie Barbecue Lady on December 30th, 2024, and the similar motion to dismiss pursuant filed by defendant Granny's Watching, and together with the defendants on December 2023, and they're talking about both of the motions now. Because of all these motions, plaintiffs' untimely responses thereto, Together, plaintiffs' untimely responses to the anti-SLAPP motions are referred herein as responses, but it's funny that they're saying, hey, we're just going to say responses from here on out, but they also say untimely responses throughout this ruling. It's pretty funny. Filed in February 14, 2025, in an apparent response to having received a notice dated February 12, 2025, advising that the oral argument on the anti-SLAPP motions would be heard on February 18, 2025, the parties' filings of record related thereto, in further support of these motions, and the operative complaint for injunctive relief and other equitable relief filed nominally by 10 plaintiffs, and having held oral argument on the anti-SLAPP motions on February 18, 2025, and having now reviewed all relevant submissions, as well as the applicable sections of Pennsylvania's law, it is hereby ordered and decreed that the anti-SLAPP motions are granted for the reasons set forth herein. So I'm going to go back and also read these citations and these other notes, because they're actually important. They do put them, below. It's not as important as the actual ruling, but these things that are said in all of these citations are very, very important. It says, the first one says, the court was required to hear oral or, oh wait, I missed this one. Okay. Number one is, Granny's motion is improperly identified on the docket as having been filed by the other defendant. So they mislabeled something on the docket, and they're just noting that. They're noting their own mistake, the court's own mistake. Yeah, the court's mess up. Yeah, I know. That's what I want to bring out. One of the things Brittney said is, oh, the judge didn't even read the complaint. She didn't read the she didn't look at the exhibits. She doesn't know the internet. Listen to this ruling and tell me that this judge didn't read the entire case before making this ruling. It's ridiculous. All right. 2. Responses to the anti-SLAPP motions were due no later than 20 days of the filing of the respective motion. So no later than January 9th, 2025 and January 13th, 2025 for the respective motions. That is, the defendants filed cover sheets to both anti-SLAPP motions, providing notice to plaintiffs of this required response time. Plaintiffs' responses were filed on February 14th, 2025, more than a month after the latest due date and 2 days after the parties were alerted. See, they had to be alerted that the court would address those motions at an oral argument. At the oral argument on February 18, 2025, defendants objected to the court's consideration of the significantly overdue responses, noted that defendants, had filed a request for the court to strike the untimely responses, and argued that defendants' assertions in the anti-SLAPP motions should be deemed admitted. As noted at oral argument, the court has exercised its discretion to consider the arguments set forth in plaintiffs' responses, but is giving those arguments the weight that the court deems that they deserve. So basically the court is saying, you haven't filed one thing on time unless you were, and then you didn't file until you were prompted. And so we get to decide how much weight to give to your own arguments about why you didn't submit these things on time. And here's additional subnotes. The court was required to hear oral argument on the anti-SLAPP motions no later than 60 days after they're filed. The anti-SLAPP motions were referred to the undersigned on February 12, 2025, and a notice of oral argument for the next possible open date on the undersigned's calendar, February 18, 2025, was issued. The court notes that the court's notice of hearing date, February 12th, was both emailed to counsel for all parties on that date and submitted for docketing on that date. Welcome people coming in. On that date, and submitted for docketing on that date. The notice appears to have been entered on the docket on February 20, 2025, 2 days after all parties appeared on the February 18, 2025 oral argument. So what they're basically doing in these subnotes, in these citations, is documenting how incompetent Lesniak is in just doing regular court procedure, meeting deadlines. So let's continue. Although all parties were provided the opportunity to provide supplemental briefs in support of their respective positions pertaining to the anti-SLAPP motions, only defendants elected to make additional written submissions. So this lawyer is not
thought
doing
that was
shit.
great.
Yeah.
Like they gave us an hour and 45 minutes. Hold on. Be quiet. They gave us an hour and 45 minutes basically during her lunch hour. And because she noted that there wasn't a lot of time that, she thought in case they wanted to say anything else. And he literally filed nothing. He filed nothing afterward. I was actually shocked. What an idiot to not take such an opportunity to have something supplemented.
Exactly. I mean, this guy did the bare minimum, and it really appears that he had no idea he was actually going to have to fight this in court. Either they rented out his name and did all the paperwork for him, okay, and he just he allowed his signature to be used by some incompetent boobs, or he just expected to do the bare minimum. He thought, oh, it's just civil. I'm a criminal lawyer, and criminal is more complicated and the burden is higher. This'll be easy. Or he just went ahead and allowed his shitty, crooked clients to, extort him into doing this. I don't know what the deal is. It is so outrageous to me that this lawyer who did a full-on interview with the E's on their channel talking about, really representing himself as on top of it and knowing all this shit and, having all kinds of experience in it, he could barely lift a finger when it came to this. So, yeah. And I agree. They all collectively thought, at least the At Night group, which would be Nick, Hong, At Night, and Lesniak, didn't think it would be fought. That's what I believe.
I think he really thought he was going to go in there and get granted a continuance, because that was one of the first things out of his mouth was, I need a continuance, after he went out in the hallway with Nick to get a catch up on what he was supposed to be going in there to speak about, in my opinion.
Wow. He's not doing it's almost like they had this conversation and they said, we just want to file this case. We want to create some, press in the Sebastian Rogers case. It'll get us attention. We'll get them to settle real quickly because they're broke and they won't be able to hire lawyers and all of that shit. And somehow he bought into this. Somehow he bought into it, either allowing his signature to be used by them or just agreeing to do the bare minimum and using Nick as a paralegal, a fucking convicted felon for fraud who's on parole was basically being used as his paralegal,
who also has a history of fabricating evidence.
Yeah. And I think this is a good point too. I think Nick convinced him that Betty and whoever could write a good complaint and Lesniak wouldn't have to lift a finger. That's what I agree with that. And for whatever reason, for whatever compromise, shady, stupid reason, he signed up for it. I mean, because he really talked on the ease about how, your reputation as a lawyer is very important to you. He had to know that his reputation was going to be on the line in some way, shape, or form, or he just didn't care. Or they have him over a barrel in one way, shape, or form and said, yeah, we're going to do this. And he was like, all right, okay. Don't want that humiliating thing that you know about me to come out. So this is more important. It's more important for me to put my reputation and my career on the line, potentially get disbarred, potentially or sanctioned, to avoid whatever it is that you would do to me if I don't do this. Right? Granny says his argument for a continuance was literally insane. They served me through the sheriff. What defendant notifies what defendant notifies they've been served? Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was an entire argument during the oral arguments for the anti-SLAPP about whether he was served, whether there was service or not, and it was on the docket.
Yep, it was.
It was on. And welcome people coming in. Thank you all for being here. And I think, did I tell Kraken? No, I didn't. Kraken, thank you so much for the super chat. All right, I'm going to continue reading here, but I want to see where I'm at here. How many citations? What?
It's a lot to like flip and go back through each page.
Right. Okay. This citation here says, the court notes that the same plaintiffs filed also on October 18, 2024, a petition for preliminary injunction and final injunction and other equitable relief, which was filed without any verification from any of the plaintiffs. The injunction petition, like the complaint, also lacks any exhibits. In addition, no certificate of service was appended to the injunction petition. As such, the injunction petition was not referred to the undersigned or any judge of this court. So you just don't choose not to follow judicial procedure and think you're going to come out here on this internet and be like, we're going to appeal this, man. This is going to the Supreme Court. You will get the same or worse responses, in my view, from the Supreme Court. Like I said, if this goes to the Supreme Court, I will eat a truckload of olives. There's just no fucking way.
I think it's good to go back up to subsection 5 and note in there also about Uncle Taco and Mrs. Taco. If you see that right in the middle.
Oh, wait, did I not read this?
No, you didn't read 5.
Oh, I didn't read 5. I skipped over 5. How stupid of me. Okay. I will read this. And remember, these subsections are basically a documentation of how badly the plaintiffs and their lawyers screwed up with this entire thing.
And it also proves that she read it, because she wouldn't have been able to come up with this opinion if she hadn't read through every little thing. She wouldn't know these names,
exactly.
know who signed verifications and such.
Exactly. Okay. Despite identifying 10 plaintiffs in the caption of the complaint and in the allegations identifying the parties, only one plaintiff, oh my God, you guys, one plaintiff attempted to verify the complaint, and that is At Night Media, LLC, through its managing partner, Hong Ji. Is it Ji? Okay. Is it somebody correct?
It's in court for his restraining order on my daughter. He actually said his last name was pronounced Sue.
Okay, Sue. Okay.
It's kind of ironic.
That's interesting, because I've known other people with the last name of Z, and that's how they spelled it. It was X-I-E, yeah, but he says it's Zhu. Okay.
Hong Sue.
Hong Sue. This purported verification is undated and therefore is no indication of the verification or elsewhere in the complaint that Mr. Zhu, on behalf of At Night, had personal knowledge and or information with respect to all of the other plaintiffs who purport to bring claims against the defendants through the complaint, and to be able to verify the complaint on behalf of the other 9 plaintiffs, nor is there a statement as to why there is no verification provided by any of the plaintiffs other than At Night. Curiously, listen to how they're documenting the fuckery here. Curiously, At Night does not even assert any purported claim against the defendants in this case. So what they're basically saying is they are a party to this case, but they assert no claims, which is ridiculous. This shows how fucking frivolous this was. And not
Same with Dog. Same with Dog. He didn't fill out one either.
Yep. Let's see. in this case. Moreover, it is clear from plaintiff's subsequent filings, including the responses to the anti-SLAPP motions, not only that the other 9 plaintiffs were able to provide verifications, but also that they were aware of their obligation to submit individual verifications. In addition, plaintiffs filed 2 responses, each with the same timestamp, to the barbecue motion, both of which contain not only verifications from the plaintiffs in this action, but also from a Michelle Klubine and Kenneth Klubine, 2 individuals who, like dozens of other non-party individuals and or entities mentioned in the complaint, are alleged to have played some role in some aspect in this case. It's not clear why verifications from the Klubines were attached and or how the Klubines could verify that the representatives in plaintiff's response to the barbecue motion were accurate and truthful. In addition, plaintiff's untimely responses to they are so pissed off. This court is so pissed off at the untimely responses. Plaintiff's untimely responses to the anti-SLAPP motions, unlike their complaint and injunction petition, both of which included the name of Attorney Lesniak and another attorney. This is where they bring up the Bruce Castor bullshit, okay? And another attorney, Bruce Castor, Esquire, above the caption, not only included verifications from each of the plaintiffs, but also were submitted with only Attorney Lesniak's law firm on the submission. Finally, the court notes that all of the responses improperly attempted to change the caption in this case to add without agreement of the parties or court order a new defendant, Stephen J. Fisher, and to change the number of Doe defendants from 1 to 50 to 1 to 14. So this is just a document. Okay, thanks, Granny. This is just a complete documentation of how frivolous and how what's the word I'm looking for? Ill-intended they were in this entire thing. They couldn't meet a deadline to save their lives. They couldn't follow any judicial procedures, and that is lawyering 101. If you can't do that, you can't do any shit. You have no place being in a fucking courtroom or filing civil litigation or going on TV to talk about it, right? And let's see. Let's read this one. Oh, I already read the number 6 one. But there's one more thing I wanted to say about this. Responses. Yeah, sorry. There was one other thing I wanted to add, but that I forgot it. I'll probably remember it later. So I read through this paragraph. It is hereby ordered. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm on the next one with you. You're good.
Okay. And thank you all for being here again. Good to see you all. Anti-SLAPP motion. Oh, I already read that. Sorry. This case arises from alleged statements and or conduct by the defendants who host true crime podcasts on YouTube and moderate online discussions with members of the public through online chat rooms about news and or criminal investigations. In particular, the defendant podcasters, Ms. Sang and Trude, have discussed the case of a missing Tennessee child in public and or publicly available online channels, podcasts, live shows, and or chat rooms on YouTube. The father of the missing child is plaintiff Seth Rogers, who has coordinated with various individuals and entities, including but not limited to the other 9 plaintiffs in this case, all of whom are either a media company, a television personality, and various YouTube broadcasters and or podcasters and or online social media personalities to attempt to find his son. So I think it is vitally important that we recognize that the first thing they bring up in this ruling, that the judge brings up in this ruling, is that they are all public figures. Everybody involved here, everybody here is public figure, and that is of paramount importance. That is of paramount importance in this, and that is why it is noticed first in this ruling as they get into the case. And also, I think it's very important that they say that Seth Rogers has coordinated with various individuals and entities, including but not limited to 9 other plaintiffs, all of whom are either a media company, a television personality, and various YouTube broadcasters. So A, that notes that they're all public figures, but B, it's noting the coordinated work between Seth and all of these other people. And if we are to look at this RICO filing as nefarious and frivolous, and also possibly defamatory and actionable through a counterclaim of defamation, then they all did group together as sort of in what they would term an enterprise. I'm not going to say they committed criminal acts. I don't know for sure, but clearly tortious acts by getting together, grouping together, launching a major RICO publicity-seeking RICO lawsuit, and then failing so hard on their face. It just really shows their intention and how weak they are. I just don't know any other way to say it. Not only weak, but malicious and ill-intended, bad faith. Okay. In a sprawling and at times almost incomprehensible document, and over the course of 79 pages and 350 paragraphs, the complaint in this civil action suggests that various statements of the 2 named podcaster defendants made on publicly accessible online YouTube platforms, which several of the plaintiffs themselves have access, and on which panels, live shows, and chat rooms plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel have participated. And they notice that the judge emphasizes this here. Plaintiffs and plaintiff's counsel have participated. Give rise to no fewer than 47 purported causes of action under various state and federal criminal and civil statutes and Pennsylvania common law. The complaint does not seek damages for the alleged wrongful conduct. Rather, it seeks to preclude defendants from hosting. This wording is so important. It seeks to preclude defendants from hosting their podcasts and to enjoin various forms of speech and or conduct. So they're basically saying they're just trying to shut these people up. Indeed, at least one of the plaintiffs has stated expressly that he intended, notice the emphasis here, this is their emphasis, he intended to file a lawsuit without regard to whether he would win, but solely to cause defendants to incur fees in defending against it. Tony, this whole thing, I'm going to keep reading it, works against you in any state, in any court of law. This is on the record, okay? This is on the record, on the judicial record, that you boldly and brutally said, I'm going to just sue you for the fun of it, just to see how much you can spend. That will work against you everywhere you go, sir. Okay. See reply in further support of Trude motion, blah, 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 text message from Plaintiff Mathis to defendant stating, LOL, I'm actually going to file a civil suit against you and make you pay to defendant. Don't care if I win. Screw filing a cease and desist. Waste, and they notice that's his mistake. When you see the SIC there, that means we're keeping this here, but it was their mistake of time. Stand by. I was done with you, but oh well. Emphasis added. And then also they say here, motion, the Seng motion, plaintiff Hatzifatziao posting on a live chat reply, we're not asking for money. If they end the nonsense Monday, this could be settled Tuesday. So notice the hierarchy of information we're getting in this ruling. First, you are public figures. Second, you clearly, by your own admission, are trying to quiet somebody else's free speech just to drum up attorney's fees.
And also they did ask, they did offer Granny to pay $500. So that's a lie by saying we're not asking for money. That's bullshit.
Exactly. Because they probably in their puny minds thought, oh, Granny can only afford $500. That, that'll hurt her and it'll make her shut up. And then it'll go away and we can use this in our, whatever failed documentary we're trying to sell to Netflix, or pretend exists so that we can sell the idea to other people. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. So now we skipped over these citations here. Let me go back and read them before I go to the next paragraph. The court notes further that preliminary objections to the complaint were filed on November 12th, 2024 by defendant Trude, and that these objections have not been reviewed or ruled as a result of the motions under review in this order. That is, under 42 blah, 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 blah. If a motion like the anti-SLAPP motions in this case is made, all proceedings in the action are stayed except as allowed, blah, 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 blah. And that stay shall remain in effect until the order ruling on the motion becomes final. Thus, the court's ability to resolve the other motions or filings in the case was removed by virtue of defendant's filing of the anti-SLAPP motions. So
I think that's telling too in itself that she never even read the preliminary objection response from our attorneys. They based this solely on their filing in the anti-SLAPP hearing.
Yep, exactly. And if you remember, they tried to file that emergency complaint and emergency motion for a hearing before the anti-SLAPP ruling came down, but after the anti-SLAPP hearing. They knew that there would be a stay on any other actions on the docket until that anti-SLAPP was ruled upon, but they pushed it in anyway with more ridiculous, poopy words of evidence, not showing any of the things that they are claiming, not showing any, by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever, racketeering conspiracy. Okay?
And also had the ease reading all of that on their page, basically telling people that it's been granted. Everybody, it's been granted. If you remember that, it's been granted. I think you made a couple of videos on it.
Yep, I have. Because it's so ridiculous to me. They were so indignant. They were so condescending to people. They're just like puppets. They're just, I mean, they were being the puppets of Nick and Hong, in everything that they were doing. Clearly, these just note who the people are. Like these, again, the hierarchy you are seeing in this ruling, and the hierarchy in these types of rulings are important in terms of the ideas. First, you are public figures. Second, you basically said you were going to file this vexatiously just to get somebody to pay fees. And we are also noting here in these subsections that the plaintiff at night is a media company. Plaintiff Dwayne Dog Chapman is a public figure. Tony Mathis is, and this is not going to work out for you well either, Tony Mathis, because in your complaint, in your current complaint in Oklahoma to Granny, you say you are what? You are what? A private citizen. Okay. But right here, Plaintiff Tony L. Mathis is national spokesperson. So this judge in Pennsylvania deems you a public figure. And it is very interesting to note that you pretended in your Oklahoma filing that this RICO ruling and your entire RICO shit doesn't exist. You just want to, you're just, trying to go at it again in a different court. I wholeheartedly believe you'll get the same result, and you'll look even more like an idiot after that. And I can't wait for that. I can't wait for you to be more confirmed as an idiot. Not that you'll Not that you'll admit it. Not that you'll admit it, but I can't wait for another judge to slap you down. Honestly, your complaints are ridiculous. Okay, so I read through this paragraph. Yes.
You're on the YouTube broadcaster.
Yep. Okay. Hello, everybody coming in. Thank you for being here. Please remember to hit the like button. Okay, as we keep going. The YouTube broadcasters and or podcasters, defendants, saying and true, do not dispute that they have discussed the search for the missing child during their shows. Indeed, all parties agree that, as summarized by the court during oral argument, the defendants host true crime podcasts that are broadcast on the internet. And on those podcasts, like any podcast, they take calls, they make comments, and they express opinions about crimes and investigations, and incidents. By and through the motions before the court, however, defendants assert that the topics about which they comment on their podcast are from public sources, and as a result, the motions assert that the lawsuits have to be dismissed because what defendants engage in is publicly protected free speech, and that the purpose of the lawsuit is to chill that free speech. Misty Blue, you thought I was going to say close your legs. Stop. That's Jay's thing. That's over on her channel. Okay. The anti-SLAPP motions assert that this lawsuit is not only frivolous and baseless, but also a prime example of the type of lawsuit that the Pennsylvania legislature sought to deter by enacting in July 2024 a statute whose express aim is to protect Pennsylvania citizens from SLAPP lawsuits. Defendants contend that through Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute, the legislature provided courts with authority to dismiss lawsuits like this one at an early stage of litigation to protect defendants from having to defend against meritless claims designed to chill their free speech. In other words, Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute, like other states' similar statutes, not only provides essential free speech protections, but also protects those exercising their constitutional rights from incurring fees and costs unnecessarily. In theory, the Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute should deter such claims from being brought. It did not do so here, and therefore, defendants in this case invoke the statute and assert in the anti-SLAPP motions before the court that the complaint should be dismissed and they should be awarded their fees and costs in defending against the meritless claims to date. And let me just read this subsection here. The purported causes of action appear to include, but are not limited to, causes of action for defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, cyberstalking of a child, and cyber harassment, civil conspiracy and coordinate defamation, criminal conspiracy, interference with prospective business relations, violations of the Pennsylvania RICO Act, and violations of other criminal statutes. So what they're noting here in this one little number 8 subsection is all of the causes of action that they're claiming, most of which are criminal in nature, but this is a civil filing. And that's
I think that in my opinion, they may be guilty of some of those things.
Yeah. I mean, they are the biggest projectors I've ever seen. You can completely listen to what they are accusing you of and say, oh, well, it looks like that's something they're doing to me or somebody else, because it always comes out later. And that's why what's so great about the internet being forever is that you can track that stuff. I'm just looking at chat to make sure I haven't missed anything. So, by the way, you guys, I do have chat on the side, and I'm the mod along with my Nightbot, and this is just my personal policy. I would prefer to not have mods for as long as possible. I just prefer to do everything on my own. So if I'm reading along here and somebody sees a troll that I've missed, just write troll in the chat. I will dispense with them very quickly. They don't get play here. They don't get very much play here. All right. and by the way, I have somewhere around 5 different people who are motivated to troll me at any given time, and they all troll me for the same reason. So it's just not.
Be thankful it's only 5.
No, I know. With my other channels, it was many, 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 many more. But I learned how to do it. I learned how to deal with that, which it drives me crazy. Like I figured out how I can take control of whether trolls get to me or not. Okay, any adult human being can do that. It drives me nuts that Brittney either pretends not to control it so that she just can keep the drama going, or just has no clue how she feeds into those trolls. It's a marvel to watch. Anyway, we'll continue with this. Chief among the rights and liberties embodied in the United States Constitution is the freedom of expression. Now, again, think about the hierarchy of this. These are public figures. You can't nefariously sue people and write about it. And chief among the rights and liberties embodied in the United States Constitution is the freedom of expression. So I remember distinctly when Mr. E was like, oh, people are trying to say this is about freedom of speech. This isn't about freedom of speech. Because you are clearly trying to quiet somebody else's free speech with all kinds of vagary. Just don't say things that we don't want you to hear and pay us to not sue you. They think that it's not about free speech. They think that because they tried to claim that these women engaged in racketeering, conspiracy, and many, many criminal acts. Thank you very much, Kraken. With these criminal acts, that it's not about free speech. No, it's actually because everything happened on the internet. You have no proof of any real life action taken by these women toward you. You have no proof of coordination or any criminal act. This is about free speech. So don't let anybody gaslight you into thinking that this is about anything other than poopy words being said on the internet. If you're going to say that this goes beyond poopy words being said on the internet and into criminal activity, you got to show proof of that, or even just tortious activity or going real life activity. In order to get like a protective order, you have to show proof that people are gunning at you full time and trying to get to you in your real life, right? Barbecue. I don't know what you had to prove with Hong and Nick.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I was given information that they shared within their AI department of At Night, which included a memorandum. I think it was a few pages long, but it just blatantly stated my daughter's name and her social media account, along with other adults. Let me
Wow.
just say that there was, I think, probably like maybe 8 other people. Some of them I recognized, maybe one of them I didn't, but there was, and on the stand, they admitted that they have memorandums out to watch several people. So that was interesting in itself too. Did I lose connection?
Oh, shoot. That was me. I don't know why I muted.
I just was making sure.
I don't even know why I muted. Anyway. Okay, well that makes sense. So you have to show that there's some, someone's gunning at you. They are being intentionally provocative, and they're trying to go into a course of conduct in your real life that is barred by law, basically. So anyway, and also I think you have to show these. I don't know if you know whether Hong has a criminal background. I'm assuming he is, since he's hanging out with Nick and he has, Lesniak as a lawyer. but I'm sure that any judge looking at an RO is looking at their criminal history and what they have the potential to do, or
We haven't
what.
we haven't seen anything, but I'll be honest, there's so many people with the same name.
Yeah.
And that could be confusing, so we don't want to like misrepresent information, but as far as I have personally seen, I haven't seen anything. It's just Nick.
Yep.
Well, between those two.
Right. Well, Pretty and Peaky hasn't gotten away with all of it, but I don't know. I wish I knew more. Anyway, okay. Chief among the rights and liberties embodied in the Constitution is freedom of speech, freedom of expression. The so-called Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute. Wait, sorry. I missed something here. Sorry. I have a tickle in my throat. I need to cough. Sorry. Okay. Hong wrote a review for exactly. Well, even in one of his, I clipped him saying, one of my lawyers. Now, why would you have a lawyer? Why would you have one of many lawyers, Hong? And it was definitely a criminal setting. There was no question. Anyway.
I mean, he recorded it in Lesniak's office.
Exactly. I mean, that's why it reminds me of Better Call Saul. You know, if anybody watched Better Call Saul, it's an amazing series. But that's who Lesniak reminds me of.
I want to tell you something, but I can't say who said it. But there was a very important person who said, if you want to know exactly who Lesniak is, just watch the first episode of Better Call Saul. Swear to God.
Yep.
The fact you just said that.
Well, he starts doing dirty stuff because he needs more money, right? And then he goes in league with the cartels, and as a fixer, and he's unfortunately really, really good at it too. But Janice in accounting says, real question, Lynn, who is more dangerous or harmful, Lana or this group of buffoons? $500 was what Betty used to shake. Okay. If I had to make a choice on who's more dangerous, I'm going to say Lana, because she is more smart than them. She's more engaging than them. She's more manipulative than them. Willing to go further, I believe, than a lot of these people in my experience, and has a bigger platform than all of these people. So I think she is more inherently dangerous. That's my belief if I were to choose. Thank you very much for the super chat. All right. Oh yeah, Nick is Kim. Kim, what's her name? Saul's girlfriend. Is that what you're saying, Spilled Tea Department? Saul's girlfriend? Kim. I'm forgetting her name right now, but I really like her character on the show. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to just start this paragraph over. Sorry again. Sorry, you guys. I keep getting sidelined by Saul. All right. Chief among the rights and liberties embodied in the United States Constitution is the freedom of expression. In the summer of 2024, Pennsylvania enacted the Pennsylvania Uniform, blah, blah, blah. Basically, the so-called Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute to curb lawsuits brought primarily to chill the valid exercise of free speech and to encourage continued participation in matters of public significance. Based on the Uniform Law Commission's Uniform Public Expression Act, Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute is designed to protect from baseless lawsuits those individuals who are engaged in constitutionally protected activities such as speech or petitioning related to public participation. It does so by granting immunity in the form of substantive relief to parties who exercise their rights to protect public expression, to protected public expression. Wexner, yes, Kim Wexner. Wexler, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate that. The avenue for a defendant to invoke this immunity and secure the substantive relief afforded by the statute is a motion to dismiss made within 60 days of a complaint being filed that asserts that the causes of action are based upon the movant's public expressions that are immune from suit. That entire paragraph right there applies to Tony as well. I'm just going to say, is it to any action that Tony can bring as well, or any of the other plaintiffs. Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute provides for immunity in civil cases if either of the following applies: where the parties asserting the cause of action based on protected public expression fails to establish a prima facie case as to each essential element of the cause of action, or state a cause of action upon which relief can be granted. 2, where there is no genuine issue to any material fact and the person against whom the cause of action based on protected public expression has been asserted is entitled to judgment as a matter of law, in law or in part. So basically, they failed on every single vector of this statute, okay? Where it says they failed so badly, and you're going to hear it more in this ruling, to establish a prima facie case. The judge looked through every single page and looked through the evidence and saw no prima facie, which means on its face, cause or case as to each essential element of the cause of action. They looked through it and said, there's no there whatsoever. There is not a prima facie case. Okay, let me just read this subsection. The statute at issue thus is referred to, but blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're just clarifying that. C-42, blah, 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 blah. The Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute defines protected public expression as, okay, these are the definitions of protected speech in Pennsylvania, and this applies federally, I believe, as well. 1, communication in a legislative, executive, or judicial or administrative proceeding. 2, communication on an issue under consideration or review in a legislative, executive, judicial, or administrative proceeding. Or exercise on a matter of public concern of the rights of freedom of speech or of the press, the right to assemble or petition, or the right of association guaranteed by the First Amendment and the Constitution of Pennsylvania. So this is basically, since this was their case was not about things that were happening in the legislature, it was really more a matter of public concern. And this was active while Sebastian Rogers' missing child case, missing teen case was very active and a matter of public concern. And his father is a party to this lawsuit. This makes the entire thing immune for free speech. You get free speech immunity because these communications are based on a matter of public concern, okay? Unless they were to actually come out and maliciously over and over and over again do all the things that they say in their other complaints, which they couldn't prove and they wouldn't be able to prove because none of it happened. Yes, Tomato Head, the judge lambasted them. They should be hiding their faces in embarrassment, but they continue their deplorable behavior. It's the fallacy of sunken costs. Well, I'm already looking bad in this RICO thing. I might as well try to recoup some of my face in these other legal proceedings. It won't work. You're suing for all the same reasons.
That they never showed any exhibits for.
Yeah, that they didn't submit exhibits timely. They didn't submit exhibits when they were supposed to, with the documents that they tried to, and then they tried to continue the anti-SLAPP hearing to get their exhibits admitted. I mean, I've never seen a bigger group of buffoons in my life, especially this lawyer. Okay. Based on the foregoing, the preliminary question raised by the anti-SLAPP motions is whether defendants' YouTube podcasts are protected forms of public expression. If so, defendants are immune from the lawsuit in this case, unless the court determines that the parties asserting claims have either established a prima facie case as to each essential element of the asserted causes of action or stated a cause of action upon which relief can be granted. The statute provides that in resolving motions such as the anti-SLAPP motions before this court, the court shall, in the law, shall is you must, or you're basically breaking the law. You're breaking court order, you're in contempt. So when they say shall, that is very important. Words are very important to the court, okay? The court shall consider the record as defined in the special motion and resources and the evidence which can be considered on a motion for summary judgment under the statute.
I love the next paragraph on the top of page 7 is where I have highlighted.
Okay, cool. Let me just read this one subnote first. As noted above, the court may also uphold a movant's public expression immunity where there is no genuine issue as to any material fact, and the person against whom the cause of action based on the protected public expression has been asserted is entitled to judgment as a matter of law or in whole or in part. Okay, that's a lot of legalese. But I truly believe that they were extremely thorough and extremely careful and diligent, word for word. I don't think I've seen one typo ever in this thing, which is rare, honestly. They were so careful because this is the first time they were going to do an anti-SLAPP ruling. It's not necessarily case law making, but it is precedent setting. They are setting a precedent, and they want to make sure that this is a solid, tight ruling that can't be contested, right?
She's a Harvard graduate, and she had an interview with Temple. This is like before we went to, while we were waiting for the ruling, I did some little like proactive Google searches. And she said in this interview with Temple University that her first language is German. She grew up in Germany. And so she learned the English language, and her quote, she loves to school people on their writing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's probably why they're so irritated about how bad the complaints and all the writings were. All the papers filed by these people were such a joke. And that must irritate the fuck out of her.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is the paragraph that you were talking about that you like. I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
And then you can comment. Where a court grants the relief as requested in the anti-SLAPP motions, the statute is clear that the prevailing party, which at this point is the defendants, is entitled to an award of attorney fees, court costs, and litigation expenses. Further, the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute does not preclude an award of punitive damages.
I think that's really big because there's so many people just saying they're not going to get punitive damages. We might not, okay? But we absolutely are filing to be able to discuss that and to read our victim impact statements and to lay out exactly how this was malicious.
It was malicious and it did harm you. The malicious intent followed through with actual harm to you and your families. Absolutely. These provisions are an attempt not only to deter frivolous lawsuits aimed at silencing speech while ensuring that defendants are not financially burdened by defending meritless claims, but also to and this is the part where punitive damages would come in, but also to deter frivolous anti-SLAPP motions filed only to delay litigation. So actually, no, that's actually about, hey, we're going to make you pay court costs if you file a frivolous anti-SLAPP motion and we give it to the other party. That means then you would be up for court costs. So anyway, exactly, Granny. Defendants argue that their YouTube podcasts are protected speech as defined by section blah, blah, blah. Because the broadcast are activities that relate to a matter of public concern and implicate the right to freedom of speech that is guaranteed in the First Amendment. Speech deals with matters of public concern when it can be fairly considered as relating to any matter of political, social, or other concern to the community, or when it is a subject of legitimate news interest, that is, a subject of general interest and of value and concern to the public. Plaintiffs' untimely responses. I love how they do that.
There it is again.
Yeah. Plaintiffs' untimely responses advance a series of questionable propositions with respect to this part of the analysis, urging the court to conclude that defendants are not immune from plaintiffs' claims under Pennsylvania's Anti-SLAPP statute because of defamation, harassment, and participation in a corrupt enterprise are not forms of protected free speech under that statute. Let me read that again. That almost tells me that Granny and Barbecue have a cause to countersue. Let me read this again. Plaintiffs' untimely responses advance a series of questionable propositions with respect to this part of the analysis, urging the court to conclude that defendants are not immune from plaintiffs' claims under Pennsylvania's Anti-SLAPP because defamation, harassment, and participation in corrupt enterprise are not forms of protected speech under that statute. They suggest, for example, that the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute defines protected public expression narrowly, even though the statute expressly provides the contrary. Broad construction of this subchapter will implement the goals under paragraphs 2 and 3 of encouraging participation in matters of public significance, not chilling such participation through abuse of the judicial process, granting immunity to a party's exercising rights to protected public expression, and awarding attorney fees to parties forced to defend against meritless claims arising from exercising their rights to public expression. Plaintiffs state further that the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute explicitly excludes defamatory statements, harassment, and malicious conduct when the statute does no such thing. Do you see that? Let me just tell you something here, you guys.
She's a savage.
I cannot believe that such fucking garbage was submitted to this court and that this court had to pour through this garbage. I mean, it is clear that this court is so pissed off that they had to comb through this garbage to try to find a claim and found nothing. And not only found nothing, but found all kinds of legal citations that are not applicable or applications of law that are not applicable. It's absolutely insane when the statute does no such thing. The other thing is, usually in a court ruling, you will see that the judge tries to, look at every argument, and then sometimes they will, even when they are finding for a defendant, they will also give some credit to some of the arguments that were made by the plaintiff. I don't see any of that here. This judge is basically tearing down every single thing they tried to do, basically saying that it was a meritless anti-SLAPP claim. I mean, it's meritless and it's protected. It's immune because of anti-SLAPP laws. So, yeah. And you know what, Kraken? Still trying, because they didn't get they didn't get it right in Pennsylvania. They think that they're going to be able to take another swing in another state. If these people think that they're going to get a different result in another state, they are out of their mind. They are literally insane. That is the literal definition of insanity. It's just absolutely crazy. BJ said, Nick's going after Granny first because of her location. Yep. I mean, they were just like, we need to put together a really splashy lawsuit so we could get more attention to the case. And we need to do it in Pennsylvania because At Night's in Pennsylvania and we're going to head up this litigation. And, Nick and Hong and At Night are, at least Nick and Hong are there.
With their free attorney.
Oh, right. And it has to be with the free attorney that has credentials to actually practice in that state. That was probably key. It has to be Pennsylvania because that's the free attorney that we get. So let's go find people in Pennsylvania. Oh, wow, look. Brittney, Jay, and Granny have a beef, and Granny's in Pennsylvania. And Granny said some poopy words about Seth on the internet. Let's go after her. Completely meritless. Absolutely meritless. And malicious. Okay? Yeah, and also, Nick's name was in the metadata. I haven't seen this myself. I know you said that before, but I think you said your lawyers looked up the metadata on the filings and showed that the Scriveners were Betty and Nick, basically.
Actually, Body did it, and she posted it on her YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for that correction. So, all right, let's keep. Where did I stop? Plaintiffs state further. Okay, yeah. When there is, I stopped at where there's no such thing. No such thing. The statute does no such thing. So the judge is basically saying every argument that the plaintiffs have tried to make are wrong, are not in the law, are misstated, are misused. And people were talking yesterday about, it really sounds like they just use ChatGPT to try to collect these, the case law, and ChatGPT really messed up badly, So anyway.
It's apparent in this next part that you read, it's very apparent that their ChatGPT is confused.
Right. Okay. Similarly, plaintiffs suggest that the defendant's alleged statements fall outside the scope of the statute's narrow definition of protected public expression, based on Weck versus Roddy, a case that preceded the enactment of Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute by 24 years, and therefore cannot support such a proposition. Right. That was a ChatGPT grab. They tried to use get case law that can't be used because the case didn't happen until the case happened well before the anti-SLAPP rule went in, right?
They actually passed the anti-SLAPP 60 days before I got the cease and desist. So
right.
I don't think that they knew the anti-SLAPP was even enacted.
Exactly. I think they completely had. I don't even know if it's hard to tell if Lesniak even understood the concept of anti-SLAPP, and he clearly isn't watching his, legal, new law notifications. Yeah, you're from PA. I now live in Virginia. I worked for the state attorney there. They don't mess around. No, they do not. It's like, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here with your gaslighting. Oh, I like this, Granny. It's 100% AI, 100% artificial, 0% intelligence. Yes.
That was a great moment. So many people laughed in the courtroom.
That was so good. 0% intelligence. That's so funny. Okay. Plaintiff's response to the Sang motion makes similarly unavailing arguments, meaning not winning, meritless. Okay. For example, in arguing that defendant's conduct does not qualify as protected public expression, blah, blah, blah. Well, the blah, 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 blah. Sorry. As support for the proposition that Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP does not protect knowingly false statements or conduct motivated by malice. In response to the Sang motion, but that case does not involve the Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute or any anti-SLAPP statute. So it could not stand for that proposition. Likewise, plaintiffs argue that under Philadelphia Newspapers versus Heps, defendants' conduct is explicitly excluded from anti-SLAPP protections. But again, that is impossible because that case does not involve the Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute or any anti-SLAPP statute. Beyond, I mean, and at this point, let me just tell you, I'm sure that while this court had to comb through this case, she was looking like this the entire time. Lord help me. Oh my God, Lord help me.
That's great.
I'm sure. I mean, that's how I picture this attorney looking this whole time.
We just need that on loop.
Yeah, on loop. On loop. Beyond the inapposite case law, apposite meaning inapplicable, doesn't work. Moreover, plaintiffs cannot credibly claim that the search for a missing child, for which, this is the part I felt so vindicated by this, because they start talking about using a missing child's case and exploiting a missing child's case. Basically, this is basically the court saying you exploited a missing child case. All right. Cannot credibly claim that the search for a missing child, for which they themselves had coordinated extensive efforts publicly as described throughout the complaint, is not a matter of public significance. Moreover, plaintiff's response to the Sang motion admits that Sang hosts a podcast discussing the true crime that the podcast involves, calls and chat communications, and discusses national news and trending cases. They admit further that news outlets and social media platforms discuss the disappearance of Mr. Rogers' missing child, and that defendant's podcast includes an open panel feature. They acknowledge public interest in the child's disappearance. They further and fully acknowledge that plaintiffs at night and others involved in their effort have coordinated media outreach and have made public statements about their investigation and this lawsuit, including but not limited to hosting a press conference and conducting a live stream broadcast about the matter. Thus, it is simply not credible to argue that the defendant's statements, conduct as alleged by the plaintiffs do not fall within the scope of Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute and provides immunity from the suit for protected public expression. To be clear, and this blew me away, that the judge actually had to cite the First Amendment in the ruling, basically saying, you don't know what the First Amendment says, do you? It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Sorry, I had to cough. So it just blows me away that she even had to add that in there. While freedom of speech is a cherished right, this right is not absolute at all times and under all circumstances, and thus can be regulated. Regulation of a person's freedom of speech may occur if the speech would inflict a harm or is a true threat, or if speech has been deemed unacceptable. All kinds of law citations, blah, blah, blah. Mentioning these categories as well as child pornography, fraud, and other speech integral to criminal conduct, citations omitted. All right. I'm going to go back up and read here. Wecht versus Roddy is otherwise additionally unhelpful because it's completely inapposite to the case before the court. In Wecht, a county coroner brought an action seeking declaratory relief in the form of a declaration that exercise of power and control over him by the county through the governing administration code was constitutionally impermissible.
I just don't see how they would even, didn't they do their own homework to know what cases they were citing? Like, where does that fit in there, Leslie?
Obviously not. Obviously not. Clearly not. Or either that or they did the research and they completely misunderstood it, right? I mean, if you're going to file a RICO racketeering conspiracy civil action against people and claim it's federal and all this stuff, you better have your shit together. You better know what the fuck you're doing, because again, you're blowing your load, right? And you're doing it on a very big public platform using the Sebastian Rogers case and dog. Were you about to say something? Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Moreover, in that case involving blah, 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 the United States Supreme Court held that at least where a defendant publishes speech of public concern, a private figure plaintiff, listen to this, cannot recover damages without also showing that the statements at issue are false. The case, therefore, underscores that a plaintiff, such as plaintiffs here, has a heightened burden. Moreover, applying the heightened burden to the complaint in this case leads the court to conclude that plaintiffs have neither pled sufficiently nor supplied any evidence, any evidence to support the conclusion that defendant's statements were false. That's why these little subnotes are so important. They say a little bit more in them about their reasoning, but the judge is basically saying they had no case on its face, none whatsoever, and then they did the most to try to get it out there.
Well, and she also noted like that they're stating in that case that it's a private figure plaintiff when she's already pointed out that they're all public figures.
Right. Abundant paragraphs in the complaint describe how plaintiffs themselves have intentionally taken their investigation for the missing child public by, for example, publicizing the dispute through plaintiff Dog Bounty Hunters' many live television appearances, publicly issuing a reward for information, and accusing the missing child's stepfather of being involved in the disappearance, none of which happened, meaning I didn't see anybody outright coming out and saying Seth is involved. Whereas I see many, many people going out there and saying, on that side, Bullhorn Betty very specifically saying that Katie and Chris did it. They killed him. She's basically saying that. And that they are horrible people, and she's inciting the holy fuck out of them. Inciting hate on them constantly. It's honestly sick. A thorough review of the complaint in this case leads the court to conclude that plaintiffs have not alleged any speech by any of the defendants from which the court could conclude that defendants' words would inflict harm, are a true threat, or have been deemed unacceptable. So please stop saying that the judge didn't read it. She read it. She read the claims, and she saw no merit. Okay? Notably, plaintiffs do not even attempt to so argue in their untimely responses to the anti-SLAPP motions. At oral argument, moreover, when pressed to tell the court what the defendants are doing, hosting true crime podcasts with topics culled from public sources, why that's not publicly protected free speech, plaintiffs offered the following. Because it goes a step further, during these podcasts, they made accusations of Seth Rogers being a pedo. This is more than passing a note to the person next to me. This is more than me espousing it in a court document. What we have is going beyond name calling and sarcasm. We have people who are espousing to thousands of viewers in these podcasts all over the world, all over the country, who are then coming back and causing damage, irreparable damage to Mr. Mathis, who was helping Seth Rogers in the finding of his child. And these podcasts are getting in the way of him doing that because they are labeling him, and they have labeled him and accused him of being the offender. They've accused him of being a molester. That was what Lesniak said in the hearing. Okay, so let's hear the judge's response. This argument does not advance the ball for plaintiffs for at least 3 reasons. See, the plaintiffs they made no effective or applicable or good argument whatsoever. This thing was literally flushed down the toilet. Okay. And you're hearing it. Again, I've never seen such a definitive and angry ruling in my life. This argument does not advance the ball for plaintiffs for at least 3 reasons. First, they appear to suggest that by making statements in a forum that is accessible all over the world, changes the analysis. The court is aware of no authority, nor do plaintiffs provide any, that would support the conclusion that there is a different framework for assessing speech when made during a public podcast, particularly one on which plaintiffs themselves are communicating. Second, the plaintiff's argument seems to be that unnamed others who listen to defendants' podcasts are the persons who are causing harm to the plaintiffs, or some of them, Mr. Mathis and Mr. Rogers. There is nothing in the complaint that provides any specific information of how defendants are causing others to act on their alleged accusations. No information as to which of the defendants made the statements, no information as to who the unnamed others are or how the others harm plaintiffs. Third, the only time in the entire complaint that plaintiffs' alleged defendants have made accusations related to pedophilia is in the count for intentional infliction of emotional distress, not defamation, asserted on behalf of Plaintiff Rogers. As alleged, and even when viewed through the lens of a claim for defamation, see, listen to this, even as alleged, even when viewed through the lens of a claim for defamation, this single alleged accusation that one of the plaintiffs is a pedophile does not take the speech out of the scope of protected public speech because of the suggestion made by plaintiffs that such an accusation is defamatory. So basically, they're saying, you came out here and said, I was defamed. You said the wrong thing about me, that I'm a pedophile, but I'm not going to sue you for defamation. I'm going to sue you for emotional distress on that count, which means that it's probably true. So a defamation claim against being called a pedophile is not going to hold water when it's true, or even when you're not going to assert that that's one of your causes of action, defamation for calling you a pedophile. I mean, and then I think what's very important in this particular paragraph is that a lot of people come out here, in this particular community and say, one person said something bad about me and now it's causing other people to harm me. Well, that may or may not be true, but it's not actionable in the courts unless you can show proof that someone actually, the person you're claiming caused it, actually did cause it, and that there was actual harm. And if you're claiming it on defamation, that the thing that they said was factually untrue and that they said it maliciously. So,
well, and also to point out, in the anti-SLAPP hearing, he claimed that all of these statements were recorded. So to not show proof of that.
Right. Right. Exactly.
It never happened. Nobody, her and I never said that.
Right. Well, but the other thing is even if you were to, this is my argument, even if you did say that, you had good reasons to say it. He came out and said that he told Katie he was going to marry her when she was 14. And that was, if anyone had that proof that he said that, and then put that together with all the other things he has said about his relationship with Katie, it's valid to maybe conclude that he may have been a pedophile. Okay, so that's why it wouldn't be defamation, and I think that's why he didn't sue for defamation on that particular front, because he knows it's true. I mean, you know what I mean? All right. He did. He said it out of his own mouth. Hi, everybody. Hi, people coming in. Hello, body moving. He did say it on Live's Angel Clips Delco. Okay. This number 15 subnote says, plaintiffs also argued, as they had stated in their untimely responses, that there's no immunity in Pennsylvania for it is not protected in presenting knowingly false allegations, and that purely private or malicious attacks aren't privileged to the same degree, and malicious tone supports actual malice. Plaintiffs conceded that statements and stating things and putting public opinion on podcasts is one thing, but argued that making factual allegations against somebody with no actual facts, with no evidence whatsoever, cannot be protected immunity, noting that there's still speech that isn't protected by the First Amendment. So they were just, in this particular paragraph, the court is just recognizing that the plaintiffs made another argument. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that pretty much right away, Granny. I was like, wait, isn't this the main reason that this is even happening is because he got Me Too'd. He basically got Me Too'd, but then he didn't have a defamation count in his complaint. I mean, come on, admit it without admitting it right there. He knew he couldn't win on that as a defamation cause because it was true, right? Hey, Jill, good to see you. Yeah, he said at some point he met her at 12. Then he said, and then he told her at 14 he was going to marry her. And then he kept changing the story, and they clearly scrubbed the internet for any reference whatsoever of him being, engaging in sex with a minor. That's what they did. But he knew, I think Seth knew that his information would be subpoenaed, and that Katie could submit an affidavit saying, yes, here's proof that we met when I was 12 and that he said he was going to marry me when I was 14, or here's proof that we actually had sex before that. I mean, he knew that was all on the table if he claimed defamation, right?
Also, there was some exhibits that were filed somewhere in there in one of the cases of things. I'm on the phone. Where Dog the Bounty Hunter, her Bullhorn Betty, Nick himself, and Hong all used the same verbiage.
Which same verbiage? About him?
No, not about him, but they were just using the same verbiage of the word pedophile.
Oh, I see.
On some of their tweets that they had made.
Well, yeah, they claim that it's basically defamation per se to use the word pedophile against anybody, and they did it to other people. Yeah, I remember when you guys showed that. I forget where it was shown, but yeah. Okay. In light of the foregoing, the court concludes that the defendant's YouTube podcast fall well. It is not usual for a court to be that hardcore. Fall well within the freedom of speech. If they didn't think this was such a horrible and frivolous case, they wouldn't have written fall well within the freedom of speech protections afforded by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Moreover, defendant speech on their YouTube broadcast can be fairly considered as relating to a matter of concern to the community, the search for a missing child, and or subjects of legitimate news interest, subjects of general interest and of value and concern to the public. In light of these conclusions, the defendants are immune from civil liability under Pennsylvania's Anti-SLAPP statute unless the materials in the record before the court establish that plaintiff's complaint sets forth a prima facie case, I always say it wrong, as to each essential element of the causes of alleged action alleged, or that the complaint states a cause of action upon which relief can be granted. Defendants argue that plaintiffs have not, through their complaint, established a prima facie case as to essential element of the causes of action against the defendants or stated cause of action upon which relief can be granted, and that many of the purported claims of the complaint are not actionable in the civil case and thus should be dismissed as a matter of law. Defendants argue further that the complaint on its face supports the conclusion that it was brought for an improper purpose. Plaintiffs untimely response to defendant Trude's motion declares that they have established a prima facie case for the claims of defamation, harassment, and violation of the RICO statute through sworn declarations and exhibits, and that they have provided declarations and otherwise met the elements of claims for defamation, harassment, and corrupt organizations. Notably, plaintiffs' untimely response to defendant Sang's motions declares that they have established a prima facie case for the claims of defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and mischaracterization of settlement discussions. Yet, plaintiff's memorandum in response to the Sang motion asserts inconsistently that they have established a prima facie case for each claim, but then addresses only the purported claim for defamation in response to Sang, and again refers to various declarations that are nowhere in the record before the court. As noted elsewhere herein, the complaint references many exhibits, but does not actually include any, nor were any ever submitted via Precipice after plaintiffs initiated the lawsuit in October 2024 or at any reasonable time thereafter. Nor did plaintiffs attach any such declarations or any relevant exhibits to their untimely responses to the anti-SLAPP motions, and only attempted to expand the record at oral argument on the anti-SLAPP motions for 4 months after they filed their complaint. Thus, statements such as plaintiffs have provided substantial evidence supporting their claims. Listen to this, Brittney, you especially, Brittney. Listen to this right here. This is specifically for you. Thus, statements such as plaintiffs have provided substantial evidence supporting their claims, including declarations and documented social evidence, are patently incorrect, as plaintiffs did no such thing. Okay? And again, if Tony or anybody else thinks that they're going to get a different result in a different court, well, good luck to you. But again, I know I'm not going to be eating olives. So I'm just checking out the chat real quickly. Thank you for becoming a member, Body, and offer for the 5 gifted memberships. Let's celebrate a little bit with a little bit of court fuckery. A little bit of court fuckery here, since we're talking about court. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Your Honor, sidebar.
Okay, listen. What you have? There's no need to do sidebars. There's no jury here.
Okay, well, that's
so
me.
you do a sidebar to keep a jury from hearing things, but there's no jury here. So
okay, then
if you have an objection, make an objection.
I mean, in all honesty,
why did she sound like Julie Skolnick?
Oh, you like the lawyer? I mean,
yeah,
I mean
the judge.
I mean, you mean the judge? Yeah. Oh my God. So, girl, I have like many hours. That particular hearing that clip is from was like 8 hours for a protective order.
Wow.
Okay. And I streamed it on one of my other channels that's now dormant. But that judge was the interaction between the judge and Lana are fucking hilarious, because Lana is like Lesniak. Lana is like Lesniak without a degree. she's a fucking she's a buffoon. She's an actual absolute fucking buffoon. Okay. And she goes into these court cases promoting her incredible intellect and her incredible lawyering skills, because even though she's not a lawyer, and then makes a fucking fool out of herself and irritates the fuck out of the judge the entire time. It's really funny. Patently true means absolutely and obviously false, clearly not in accordance with the facts. The word patently emphasizes the clear and undeniable nature of the untruth. Yeah, exactly. So, and I noticed Julie Skolnick is in here. Hi, Julie. So you had asked me to send you an email yesterday, and I did, and I'm pretty sure I spelled your email. So, and I don't think I've heard back from you. So I'm just letting you know I did send you the email as requested. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. All right. So now let's read these subsections, because I mean, it makes it longer, but they are definitely juicy. It's basically the court having a side rant in many of these subnotes. As noted above, the court may also uphold a movement's public expression immunity where there is no genuine issue as to any material fact, and the person against whom the cause of action based on protected public expression has been asserted is entitled to judgment as a matter of law in whole or in part. The Superior Court has found that it's unlawful for any person to conspire to violate the other RICO provisions. While ascertaining the validity of a claim under the statute, courts are clear that any claim under Section 1962D based on conspiracy to violate the other subsections of Section blah, 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 must fail if the substantive claims are themselves deficient. The complaint here is utterly, listen to this, the complaint here is utterly deficient as to all substantive claims raised under RICO.
Moo.
Not only do the complaint and the responses to the anti-SLAPP motions fail to specify the purported enterprise, besides naming both defendants as the enterprise, you and Granny were the enterprise. The complaint.
We will not pick you up.
The complaint fails to allege a cognizable RICO action under section blah, 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 and the responses to the anti-SLAPP motions fail to address the arguments on this issue as raised by defendants' anti-SLAPP motions. Again, and notably, you guys, courts so rarely use these terms like emphasis and well within, or anyway, okay. And notably, while the court permitted supplemental memoranda from all parties following oral arguments as to the anti-SLAPP motions, plaintiffs failed to provide any supplemental brief in response to the defendant's arguments at oral argument, including but not limited to the failure of the complaint to state a cognizable RICO claim, which brief could have addressed these specific issues raised by defendants. Finally, the counts of the complaint do not establish that defendants engage in any pattern of racketeering activity, nor does it establish a RICO claim under Section 1962. So basically, because they couldn't even make a prima facie case in any way, shape, or form on the other counts, then RICO just falls flat on its face, because you have to show at least a prima facie case, or prove the conduct and the other stuff to get up to the RICO, enterprise organization thing. But it was all a house of cards because it was so, yeah, anyway. So yeah, agree. It's written with confidence and finality. Exactly. Okay, I'll quicken the pace since it sounds like you have to go pretty soon, Barbecue.
Oh, I was just seeing if maybe Granny wanted to hop up here and for the second half of the reading. Before I leave, though, I do want to say, like, when you get to the end and you get to Christina O'Donnell, let's see, look, because I just want to say this before I leave. Where are we at here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, somewhere towards the end. Somebody, Christina O'Donnell, she's a TikToker. She said I called her a couch potato and a drug addict, and I never spoke those words in my entire life about her. But again,
Wow.
This is coming from a girl who I'm going to actually send you a video. I'd like you to play it if you can today. And it's her commentary with Seth and Tony in the background. I'm going to send it to you on Twitter.
Okay. If I may or may not get to it, but thank you for sending that. Okay. So yeah, just let me know if you want me to drop when and if you want me to drop the link, Granny, if you want to come up. Okay. So I'm going to continue reading these subsections. Plaintiff's responses therefore purport to address only 4 of the 47 counts. Notice they emphasize that described in the complaint. Neither in plaintiff's untimely responses nor in plaintiff's presentation to the court at oral argument did plaintiffs ever address any of the other purported 43 counts. And they quote counts because you don't have counts in civil cases. Counts are for criminal cases, okay? In civil cases, it's causes of action. And so it shows that they were trying to criminalize this, and they're using a Timu Saul type, Better Call Saul type of lawyer. Only Better Call Saul's way more smart than Lesniak. Okay. The only visible exhibit attached to plaintiff's responses was Exhibit A photocopy of a Florida driver's license of an individual who is not referenced in the response and is not otherwise party to this case. Indeed, the only exhibit to which the response to the Trude motion refers is an appended exhibit B. As to the other filed response, again, there's a reference to an Exhibit B, yet appended to the response is an Exhibit A that is merely a black page containing a DocuSign envelope ID number at the top left corner. They're basically saying your exhibit, you didn't submit your exhibits, you didn't submit it on time, and the ones that you did submit didn't even pertain or were another waste of time. At oral argument, plaintiffs not only requested that the court expand the record by considering vast amounts of purported evidence, including but not limited to hundreds of hours of podcasts and other written documents that they chose not to submit in any form 4 months prior, but also requested a continuance of the oral argument so that they could undertake discovery. Plaintiffs suggested that the court could continue the hearing on the anti-SLAPP motion so that plaintiffs can continue digital evidence. The Pennsylvania anti-SLAPP statute does not allow a court to delay oral arguments either for good cause or to allow limited discovery if a party shows that specific information A is necessary to establish whether a party has satisfied or failed to satisfy a burden under section blah, 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 and B is not reasonably available unless discovery is allowed. When pressed at oral argument as to the nature of the discovery plaintiffs needed, plaintiffs represented as follows. Let me cough real quickly. Plaintiffs represented as follows. I have the discovery to hand the defense counsel. I believe it would be relevant to them to have the exhibits and the discovery in the case. So we're asking the court for a short time to provide that discovery. It is hundreds of hours of digital evidence that I have on thumb drive. I could not put it into a document form because it does not exist in a document form. So we're asking for a chance to do that as well as any other discovery that may be needed in this case for this oral argument. I understand this is, the last minute. Oh my God.
As always.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Defendants objected vehemently to the request, suggesting that discovery is more nonsense added to an already egregious scenario that's before this court, including but not limited to a complaint that lacks a single. Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me get my dog quiet. Sorry.
That's why I've been on mute the whole time, because my little guy's been sitting here barking the whole time at Dozer.
Yeah, see, my dog he's all the way on the other side of the house, but he has a loud bark.
Yeah, he sounds like a big dog.
He's not. He's 50 pounds, but he's a golden doodle, so he's the sweetest thing on earth. But he
Aww.
but he has that bark, which I like. I like that he has that bark, but it's not convenient during live streams. Hold on a second.
Well, he protects you. That's what that means. He's alerting.
Exactly. But there are times when it's people that
inconvenient.
There's also times that it's people that he recognizes, so he's just standing there barking to say hi, because he recognized them. He's sitting there, he's wagging his tail and barking. So anyway, does he sound just like your golden doodle? That's cool. Screenshot this. I'm just checking chat real quickly. La-di-da-da-da.
What's your dog's name, if you can share?
I'll share. I've shared this before. His name is Steve.
That's great.
You might even laugh more when I tell you why he's named Steve. So I knew when I've had him 9 years now. When I first got him, I really wanted a human name, a regular human name for my dog, and we were me and my kids were brainstorming. And finally, and then while we were brainstorming, somehow we got on the topic of Steve Jobs, because I used to work for Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And so my son goes, "How about Steve?" And I'm like, oh my God, I love it. Because I really appreciate Steve Jobs, but he was so fucking hard to work for. So it is an honor, but it's also enabled so I can say, "Sit, Steve." No, Steve.
Shut up, Steve.
Yeah, shut up, Steve. Yeah. Lay down, Steve. Get away, Steve. I don't know. It was a
funny.
little bit. It was a little bit of turning it around on him, but also honoring him at the same time, because it was after he died that I got him. So anyway, okay. So he's finally not barking anymore, and so I will continue reading. Let's see. Okay. The defendants objected. I already read that. Right. Okay. To which the plaintiffs responded as follows. Some information as to the basis of their podcast. So we have podcasts going all the way back to the beginning of October from these two defendants regarding my client and statement made about my clients. As defendants' counsel noted, plaintiffs admitted repeatedly that they already have an overwhelming amount of information in their possession. Moreover, as noted therein, nothing prevented plaintiffs from supplementing the record at or near the time of the filing of the complaint in October 2024 with either the paper documents or their possession or with transcripts of the podcast. They did not do so and waited until the day of oral argument to raise the issue. Idiots.
It sounds like a habitual problem, like waiting until 3 days before their brief is due,
Yeah, and then needing to be prompted by being overdue and then saying, "Oh, I have a good excuse. Let's continue, blah blah blah. Let's go out of order in this whole thing. You'll give me leeway, won't you?" Okay. Plaintiffs also argued that, if followed, they could file interrogatories to ask questions about what defendants mean on these hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours of podcasts, to find out what it is that these defendants had intention as far as these podcasts. Plaintiffs suggested that they have a burden to show probable cause, but Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute does not require such a showing. Probable cause, that's in criminal cases. Okay. The court observed, as it does elsewhere herein, that one of plaintiffs' apparent themes in their complaint is that defendants' conduct is criminal. In a criminal proceeding, probable cause would, of course, be relevant. So they keep they keep treating this case as a criminal case, even though it's a civil case, and they're using nomenclature that is used in criminal cases for a civil case, which gives them dead away that either they're, wanting it to be criminal, or that they have no fucking clue what they're doing in a civil court, right? Sorry. Okay. I will keep reading. Ultimately, the court denied plaintiffs' request for a continuance to conduct discovery, noting that defendants had not requested any discovery. The court notes further herein that it agrees with defendants. Plaintiffs, by their own admission at oral argument, already had abundant amounts of information. The 350 paragraph complaint alone suggests that plaintiffs do not lack information, nor do they lack the wherewithal to have provided that information and the sources of that information to defendants and the court at a much earlier stage in the litigation. Simply put, there was no good cause to grant the request. Indeed, granting the request would have contravened the spirit and express purpose of the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute. Exactly. Okay, so now, overall, plaintiffs' responses to the anti-SLAPP motions were as unhelpful to the courts. I've never seen a judge this mad. As unhelpful to the court's resolution thereof as the complaint, but for different reasons. Put differently, plaintiffs' untimely responses are as anemic as their complaint is verbose. As noted, the response, this is such good judicial slam, man. As noted, the responses not only refer to exhibits not in the record, but also simply make summary statements without any analysis that the defendant's conduct does not fall within the scope of protection afforded by the Pennsylvania's Anti-SLAPP statute, and that plaintiffs have established a prima facie case for each claim. Surprisingly, given the length and breadth of the complaint's wild allegations, the court is calling them wild allegations, okay? The court said that. These are wild allegations, okay? And it's 47 supposed counts. The responses to the anti-SLAPP motions contain no reference whatsoever to any of those allegations and no analysis of how any of these allegations establish any prima facie claim. Whether with respect to the 47 counts in the complaint or even just the 4 counts that the responses state flatly have been established. Put differently, plaintiffs' responses to the anti-SLAPP motions are not presented in a manner that helps the court discern which portions of the record actually establish a prima facie case as to each essential element of the causes of action purported to have been stated in the complaint, or which portions of the record, or even just which allegations of the complaint would allow the court to conclude that plaintiffs have stated a cause of action upon which relief can be granted. That was the world's most long sentence I've ever read, I think. Moreover, and particularly important in light of the stated purposes of Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP law, plaintiffs' unwieldy and cumbersome complaint prevents defendants from discerning the salient facts and civil torts that they have supposedly violated, thus rendering the defense of such a lawsuit even more difficult and costly than a lawsuit that is drafted with directness and clarity. Although the court has attempted, I love this part, although the court has attempted to decipher the complaint, the court notes that plaintiffs' untimely, paltry.
Isn't that like the 12th time that she said untimely?
Yes. So, yeah, I wish I had started counting it. Untimely and paltry responses to the anti-SLAPP motions fall far short of demonstrating that the immunity afforded by Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute does not apply in this instant, or that plaintiffs have properly pled or supported any viable cause of action against the defendants. And you can tell that as they, it starts out just giving the ruling starts out, pretty neutral, but stating the record. You almost hear whoever's writing it, like the court clerk or the judge, as they're writing it, they're getting more and more angry.
All right, I gotta
More-
hop down, Lynn. I just appreciate you for letting me
Okay.
come up. I'm sorry to hop down. I gotta go to work. All
Oh
right.
no. Hey,
I'll be
no,
listening.
life, baby, life. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
listening in the chat.
Okay, thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
All right. Have a and you know what? I am going to share both Granny's and Barbecue's channel links. I have a personal policy of not involving myself financially with any other creator. Okay, you guys. So that's why I don't join memberships and I don't contribute to legal funds. I try to stay neutral as possible, and also because I had a terrible, terrible experience a few years ago with similar situations. So, but I know that Barbecue and Granny both have fundraisers. So I'm going to share their channel links, and it's up to you if you want to go contribute to their fundraisers. And I would encourage it because they are definitely being raked over their coals here for nefarious purposes. I fully and wholeheartedly believe that. So, did it share, Grant? Did it share Barbecue's channel? That's weird. I put in the command, but it didn't go. Maybe I put in the wrong command. Oh, I put in the wrong command. Sorry. All right. Here we go. So, also, I'm going to share the StreamYard link in case Granny would like to come up if she's done with whatever she was doing. Yeah, I hope nobody gets offended. I hope none of the creators get offended that I don't join memberships. I don't super chat. I just don't get financially involved with other people because I want to try. I want to be as neutral as possible and not show favoritism, but also because I had such a horrible experience before. I really did, and it turned me off to getting so far behind a specific creator that I would give them money or promote their fundraisers. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that. Did I share the StreamYard link? No, I didn't yet. Okay, if you want to come up, Granny. All right, continuing to read. Now I'm reading these subnotes to what we just read. As noted elsewhere herein, plaintiffs' untimely responses cite to inapposite case law that does not help them or this court to resolve the motions before the court. For example, case citation involves an appeal of a final determination of the Office of Open Records granting a request for information pursuant to the right to know law, not the Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute or any SLAPP statute. Yet another bad pleading. So when they say it's poorly pled, when they say it's something poorly pled, it means they didn't use the right case law. They didn't have case law, and they didn't set forth the reasons for their causes well at all, especially in the case law. Okay, as noted above, plaintiffs' untimely responses speak to only 4 of the purported causes of action identified in the complaint. In the comparable text of a motion for summary judgment, the party who has the burden at trial must, in his/her response to a motion, point to the evidence in the summary judgment record with respect to each element of the claims at issue that the non-movement believes precludes summary judgment. A response must allow the court to readily discern which portions of the record establish a factual issue with respect to the separate legal claims at issue with the elements thereof. Indeed, this civil statute substantially attenuates the duty of the trial court as it existed under former rule, blah, 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 blah. The court should not need to scour the record for every conceivable ground on which to deny summary judgment. Similarly here, plaintiffs should have, but did not, address in any helpful way with citations to the complaint or through exhibits to their responses how their pleading withstands defendants' claimed immunity under Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute. So in practically every single thing they did it wrong. Every move they made was buffoonery, too late, or whatever. Thank you for saying that, Shift. All right, I was just looking through chat, just making sure. Did Julie respond to me saying that I sent her an email and I haven't heard back? So in case I sent it to the wrong place, I just wanted to let her know. Or my email address, so you all know, is checkmatehumanity@gmail.com. That's one of my YouTube related emails. Checkmate Humanity. Oh, she said she got it. Okay, good. All right. Although the court could grant the anti-SLAPP motions on the basis of the foregoing alone, including but not limited to plaintiff's failure to point to any allegations or evidence that demonstrates any viable cause of action against defendants, the court has endeavored to examine the complaint to discern whether there's any basis for plaintiffs to overcome the immunity afforded defendants by Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute. As noted elsewhere, this effort was made difficult by the sprawling behemoth that is the largely unverified complaint. Okay, thank you, Julie. It was so funny. The sprawling behemoth that is the largely unverified complaint. Indeed, the civil complaint is a rambling and disorganized document that reads more like a salacious tabloid peppered with references to an undefined enterprise and a host of criminal Pennsylvania and federal statutes that defendants are accused of violating. In 350 paragraphs, the complaint identifies 10 plaintiffs, although only 8 of them purport to assert any counts against the defendants, alleges various facts, including a brief background followed by a timeline that spans a dozen pages, and sets forth various additional facts under headings for 3 of the plaintiffs, and blah, 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 blah. Therefore, I need to clear my throat. Sorry, I had to clear my throat, and then also I thought I heard my neighbor calling me or something. Okay. Thereafter, sections 6 and 13 of the complaint then purport to set forth various counts on behalf of some, but not all, of the plaintiffs. Simply put, the complaint in this case nearly impedes judicial review because it is poorly pled and lacks a coherent and logical presentation of the this judge is mad. Those plaintiffs didn't read this. They didn't see how damning this is. Okay. Lacks a coherent and logical presentation of the material facts on which the causes of the action are based in a concise and summary form, as required by Pennsylvania Rule of Civil Procedure. Pennsylvania is a fact-pleading state and requires a greater degree of particularity and organization than the complaint in this case provides. They're citing C. Lerner versus Lerner, which requires that the material facts on which a cause of action is based shall be stated in a concise and summary form to enable the adverse party to prepare her defense. If anything, the complaint reads more like a pleading that the scrivener intended to file in a criminal proceeding, and it refers throughout and consistently to criminal statute. But even viewed through such a lens, the meandering presentation of the facts supporting supposed violations of the law is almost incomprehensible. I've never seen a judge be so fucking savage, man. Indeed, by appearance and substance, the complaint does not seem to have been prepared by a practitioner with more than 20 years of litigation experience. Oh my gosh. Indeed, plaintiff's memorandum in support of their separately filed and completely unverified injunction petition describes the case as stemming from a criminal enterprise, labels that enterprise as a coordinated criminal enterprise, and purports to outline a pattern of illegal and harmful conduct that violates the state and federal criminal laws. The complaint is signed by Joseph P. Lesniak, Esquire, who's the attorney of record in this case, and is also identified in the case caption. While the court notes that Mr. Lesniak practices primarily in the criminal courts, he has, according to his website, some experience in non-criminal matters as well, and certainly understands or should understand the rules of pleading government civil complaints, governing civil complaints. Although the caption of the case also identifies attorney Bruce Castor, a prominent attorney with a significant local, statewide, and national reputation, Mr. Castor did not sign the complaint and is not counsel of record, as evidenced by the lack of any appearance filed by Mr. Castor or any of the plaintiffs in this case. Nevertheless, the complaint describes attorney Castor as being intimately involved in this action on behalf of plaintiffs. Plaintiff Dog the Bounty Hunter, accompanied by co-counsel Honorable Bruce Castor Esquire, appeared on live court TV during the morning show to discuss the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. The complaint then sets forth in great detail what attorney Castor purportedly said, emphasizing his alleged words that if things worsen, I will recommend plaintiffs take legal action because this situation has become totally unreasonable. At oral argument, Mr. Lesniak represented that attorney Castor was not, in fact, an attorney of record, but was consulted in this. Yeah, that's right. He was consulted in this manner, Shay, and gave permission to use his name at the top, Shay. Yeah, that's right. Defendant's submission in connection with the anti-SLAPP motions reflect not only that attorney Castor is not involved in this case at any indication otherwise is in error, but also that attorney Castor requested that the plaintiffs correct any misunderstanding in that regard, so that the court, counsel, and litigants are aware of attorney Castor's non-involvement, as attorney Castor would rather not do anything to draw attention to this issue. It is so important that the judge included this in the ruling because it is showing their absolute debauchery in this entire thing from the very start. And that's why I made a video that said they doomed this thing it's not just a little oopsie doopsie that you submit a complaint with an attorney's name that doesn't have that has nothing to do with the case when you're clearly trying to intimidate the defendants. Okay, it shows their intent right out the gate that they would falsely include the name of somebody who doesn't even want to be represented in the case, or what doesn't want to be involved in the case, isn't representing anybody. Oh, interesting. Barbecue says, anybody remember when Bullhorn Betty said that Steve Fisher falsified those emails from Bruce Castor? Definitely weren't falsified because I leaked them. There you go. In addition, the complaint includes numerous allegations in the first person about attorney Lesniak's interaction with the parties to this action. This pleading style is not only highly unusual in a civil action, but also some concern. Remember, courts choose their words very carefully, okay? Also, of some concern. They're basically flagging here that this attorney conduct is concerning and should be looked at, okay? As counsel appears to be a fact witness in the case, Mr. Lesniak himself at oral argument noted that he had gone on defendants' podcast and had witnessed statements and even interacted with defendants about their statements. Defendants objected to such belated improper supplementation of the record. Okay, so I need to come back up here. Yeah, I read that. Okay. Moreover, Although the complaint references well over 50 exhibits, absolutely no exhibits were attached to the pleading filed on October 18, 2024. The court acknowledges that during oral argument on the anti-SLAPP motions, plaintiff's counsel informed the court that he had not been permitted to upload videos, podcasts of the YouTube broadcast to the Office of Judicial Support docket. However, the court notes that nothing prevented plaintiffs from uploading to the docket the 46 documents that are referenced in the complaint, which are clearly paper exhibits. For example, all of the sworn declarations. Similarly, nothing prevented plaintiffs from filing the reference exhibits via precipice. They did not. The docket contains no such precipice, and it was only at oral argument on February 18, 2025, 4 months after they had filed the complaint, that they proposed that the court should accept the admitted exhibits and audio transcripts of the YouTube videos, podcasts, and blah, 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 blah. Likewise, plaintiffs could have, but elected not to, submit transcripts for the hundreds of these podcasts from which plaintiffs argued at oral argument their claims against defendants. Notably and pertinent to the court's analysis of plaintiffs' purported civil claims against defendants, the filed complaint makes only general references to the YouTube broadcast podcast with no specific identification of the date or time of the purported statements that are on a basis of the purported claims against the defendants. Moreover, the very few specific quotations that plaintiffs attribute to each defendant are set forth without specificity as to the date or time that these statements were made by either defendant. I mean, this is basically the judge telling a lawyer how to do his work in a ruling and being pissed off that she has to do it. That's mine. That's my opinion of how this judge. Again, the judge is just sitting here reading through this shit and going, "Oh my God, do I really have to entertain this shit?" Oh my Lord, Lord, get me through it. Get me through it, baby. Get me through it. Have I missed any? Okay, good. All right. Hope y'all are doing okay in the chat. Sorry I can't interact with all of your chats, but I'm reading through this. In examining the complaint itself, the court notes that as an initial matter, and as plaintiffs themselves state in various submissions to the court, the overwhelming alleged counts in the complaint purport to state claims for violation of state and federal criminal laws. As such, they're inappropriately pled in this civil action that, on its face, seeks injunctive and other equitable relief in the form of, in essence, silencing the defendants. So the court is stipulating you are trying to silence these defendants. Indeed, beyond plaintiff's description of their requested relief, evidence attached to defendant Trude's anti-SLAPP motion reflects that the complaint was brought for the very purpose that Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute was designed to combat: to cause defendants to spend money defending against a lawsuit regardless of merit. Okay? So I cannot believe that any of these plaintiffs think that they'll get any sort of different result. And let's not start getting into, like, degrading people in the degrading private investigators in the chat. He really has nothing to do with this. So that's actually not true. I'm going to delete that because it's not true. And you're just doing it very maliciously. What you just said is not true. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. Regardless of merit. The idea that any of these people, especially Tony, thinks that he could go back to the drawing board in a different state and not mention that he got this damning ruling in another state for the same shit that he's doing now, and he thinks he's going to get a different result. That is literal insanity, you guys. Okay. See reply in further support of Trudy. Text message from Plaintiff Mathis to defendant Trude stating, LOL, I'm actually going to file a suit against you and make you pay to defendant. Don't even care if I win. Screw filing a cease and desist. Sick of time. A waste of time. Stand by. I was done with you, but oh well. See also Nick the Hat saying, we're not asking for money, except if they end the nonsense Monday, this could be settled Tuesday. The repeated references to criminal conduct, criminal liability, and the alleged involvement in the former Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as stated both in the caption of the complaint and in various averments in its body, suggests that it was the intent of at least some of the scriveners to scare the defendants. Okay, bye-bye. See, as soon as you use name calling, you've lost the argument, okay? Especially when you're spreading false information. All right, as we continue. The repeated references to blah, 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 intent of at least some of the scriveners to scare the defendants into believing there could be or might be criminal charges filed against them. The exhibits appended to defendants' submissions, the communications from plaintiffs Mathis and Hatzafatsau, certainly support the conclusion that plaintiffs intended to scare defendants from continuing to broadcast or else be tied up in litigation solely for litigation's sake. Wow. Stripping away the invoked criminal counts, the purported violation of the civil statutes, and torts attempted to be pled in the complaint appeared to be the following: civil conspiracy, alleged by Plaintiff Griffin; defamation, alleged by Plaintiffs Griffin, Jackson, Mathin, O'Donnell, and Hatzafatsau; intentional infliction of emotional distress, alleged by Plaintiffs Griffin, Jackson, Rogers, and O'Donnell; interference with prospective business, alleged by Plaintiff Griffin; and invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts, and false light, alleged by Plaintiff O'Donnell. All other counts, claims, and allegations against the defendants reference purported violations of criminal statutes and laws which do not form a basis of a civil action. Therefore, any count that purports to set forth violations of a criminal law cannot be a basis for recovery in this civil action and fails as a matter of law. As such, and put differently, defendants are entitled to judgment as a matter of law as to any purported violations of criminal, and those purported counts must be dismissed. As to the potential counts that appear to raise potential violations of civil statutes or torts, civil conspiracy. Plaintiff Andrew Griffin alleges that defendants conspired with third parties in order to defame her. The elements of the common law claim for civil conspiracy are a combination of two or more persons acting with a common purpose to do an unlawful act or to do an unlawful act by unlawful means, a lawful act by unlawful means or for unlawful purpose. 2, an overt act done in pursuance of the common purpose. And 3, actual legal damage. In count 3, Plaintiff Griffin alleges that defendant Singh has been targeting Ms. Griffin since 2021, but that the attacks intensified in 2024. Ms. Griffin makes bold and bald allegations that defendants have acted in concert in a coordinated effort to attack Ms. Griffin with no specificity as to the acts of either or both defendants. At best, Ms. Griffin avers in count 1, identifying various causes of action, including defamation, that defendant Singh called Andrew Griffin a tragedy pimp and a grifter with no reference to when these words were spoken. But calling Ms. Griffin names, listen to this, Ms. Griffin, if you're here, because sometimes I know you or your people troll, but calling Ms. Griffin names does not create a civil conspiracy. Ms. Griffin also alleges that unnamed persons influenced by defendants saying made false reports that led to Ms. Griffin being falsely accused and arrested, again, without specificity or any attached proof of those who of who these persons are or how these purported persons are connected to either of the defendants, nor does the complaint identify the date of purported arrest or the dismissal of any purported charges. Tragedy pimping Ms. Griffin, that's right. Moreover, Ms. Griffin fails to plead, let alone establish a prima facie claim for actual legal damages. Although Ms. Griffin makes a vague and general allegation that the conduct of defendants damaged her reputation in her profession and in her professional standing, she does not identify any facts pertaining to any persons or businesses which have purportedly canceled or decreased any business with her as a result of defendant's action. Such specificity is required in the Commonwealth. That is, rule blah 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 requires the count to determine if the defendants can ascertain the facts of the complaint which are sufficiently specific as to enable a defendant to prepare its defense. The court notes that while Ms. Griffin in the title count 3 states civil conspiracy, the count actually and specifically invokes the criminal conspiracy statute and Pennsylvania common law. In light of the foregoing, the court concludes that the complaint fails to establish a prima facie case of a legally sufficient claim raised by Andrew Griffin against defendants for a civil conspiracy, and that claim must be dismissed. Defamation. Plaintiffs Andrew Griffin, Brittney Jackson, Tony Mathis, Christina O'Donnell, and Nick Hatzifaso allege various counts of defamation against defendants. See complaint blah blah blah. Based on the complaint's allegations, each of these plaintiffs is either a public figure or a limited purpose public figure under Pennsylvania law. That is, as noted by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. A limited purpose public figure is an individual who voluntarily injects himself or is drawn into a particular public controversy and thereby becomes a public figure for a limited range of issues. To determine such status, it is necessary to consider the nature and extent of an individual's participation in the particular controversy giving rise to the defamation. This particular case says a controversy may be created by the individual's own actions. It is clear, based upon a thorough reading of the complaint and the presentation of counsel at oral argument, that Andrew Griffin, Brittney Jackson, Tony Mathis, Christina O'Donnell, and Nick Hatzifaso are public figures or limited public figures, as they have injected themselves into the public eye to find the missing child from Tennessee. These plaintiffs have either held press conferences, appeared on the television news, or have engaged in social media discussions and or created social media posts related to the missing child. As public figures or limited public figures, plaintiffs have a higher burden when raising allegations of defamation due to the inherent right and claims of free speech grounded in the First Amendment. So this applies to Tony's case as well, I feel. As public figures or limited public figures, these plaintiffs bear the heightened burden of establishing that the statements made by defendants were false, but plaintiffs have failed to establish this in their complaint. First, this court reiterates that the complaint is devoid of the clarity required by the rules, and as a result is difficult to discern what, if any, statements at issue here can be attributed to either defendant. Even if the court were able to ascertain the allegedly violative statements of opinions that cannot be established as provably false are protected by the First Amendment. Moreover, an expression of an opinion does not give rise to a claim of defamation. Did you hear that, everybody? Exactly. I don't know if you were here, Granny, but in the beginning of this, it's in one of the subnotes, it says that he is a public figure, and that's why one of the reasons his claims can't be supported here. He is a They even said that he says that he is a national spokesperson. Okay. And all right, let's keep going. As to plaintiffs Griffin and Jackson only, the complaint identifies purported direct quotations of the purported defamatory statements of only defendant Singh. Ms. Griffin claims to have been defamed by defendant Singh by the statements tragedy, pimp, and grifter. Ms. Jackson claims to have been defamed by defendant Singh by statements that she was being a lazy, wasteful piece of shit, and that defendant Singh stated, "You won't ever catch me driving with my children unlocked and standing up, but children unbuckled and standing up." But there's no identification of any specific time when these statements were said, or any evidence other than the bald allegations not verified by plaintiffs Jackson or Griffin, corroborating the suggestion that these statements were made by defendant Singh. There's also no reference to who heard these purported statements, how these statements were said, or that they caused actionable damage to either plaintiffs Griffin or Jackson. While she makes a vague and general allegation that defendant Singh, in calling plaintiff Jackson a lazy, wasteful piece of shit, caused her humiliation, damaged her personal or professional reputation, and or affected her professional standing, the complaint does not otherwise describe Ms. Jackson's purported professional reputation. Further, the complaint does not identify any person who heard the statement or describe how these purported statements have caused a loss in these plaintiffs' credibility. Again, such specificity is required in the Commonwealth. Similarly, as to plaintiff Griffin, she also makes a vague and general allegation that defendant Singh called her a tragedy pimp and a grifter, and purports that this is evidence of defamation per se and caused damage to her professional reputation. The complaint does not otherwise describe Ms. Griffin's purported professional reputation. Further, the complaint does not identify any person who heard these statements or describe how these purported statements have caused these plaintiffs' professional credibility. Again, such specificity is required under Commonwealth Rule blah, 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 blah. As noted here in above, Rule blah, blah, blah requires the court to determine if defendants can ascertain the facts of the complaint, which are sufficiently specific as to enable a defendant to prepare its defense. So just remember what I just read when you hear any of these plaintiffs, especially Brittney, because she says it all the time. I have proof. I have proof of everything I said. She never shows proof. And when she had her big baller chance through this RICO case to show her proof, she failed. Okay? She failed. And it's not going to be any different. There's not going to be any different in outcome in any other legal proceeding where you're claiming things and you can't prove it. And in fact, you will be seen more as a bigger tragedy pimp than you already were, and potentially opening yourself to a major countersuits. And I want to thank AK47 for the super stickers. I really, really appreciate the support. Here's a little something for you.
Falsely claimed these because
listen, what I'm going to tell you, though, I am going to advise you, Ms. Oriani, that you do have the right not to incriminate yourself.
I do.
I don't know.
And I would not like to speak on anything that has to do with that.
Please talk.
Yep.
Can I please talk? Oh, man. Okay. Right, Granny. It's not defamatory if it's true. So that she would put that as a defamation claim in a lawsuit, knowing that it's true, shows her malice and ill intent. Sorry, I got some hair in my mouth. I was trying to get it out. And the word I keep looking for is bad faith. Bad faith. I keep saying ill intent, but a better way to put it is bad faith. Okay, let's keep reading. As to the claims for defamation purportedly asserted by plaintiffs Mathis, O'Donnell, and Hasafatsow, these plaintiffs, too, are public figures or limited purpose public figures. A review of the counts of the complaint filed by these plaintiffs reveals not one single quotation attributed to either defendant saying or Trude. Plaintiffs Mathis and O'Donnell merely allege that defendant Trude made statements that they say are more than mere insults and damage their reputations. Plaintiffs failed to plead with the specificity of any of those statements. Additionally, plaintiff Hasafatsow identifies neither a particular defendant nor a particular statement, merely stating that defendants made several false statements. Altogether, plaintiffs Griffin, Jackson, Matthias, and O'Donnell, and Hasafatsow have failed to establish a prima facie case of a legally sufficient claim for defamation against defendants. As such, defendants are immune from suit, and these claims must be dismissed. Flush down the toilet. Failed. Okay. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. And no, we just read through the defamation claims, and Seth was not in there. Thank you so much for another super chat, AK47. Plaintiffs Andrew Griffin, Brittney Jackson, Seth Rogers, and Christina O'Donnell purport to state claims of intentional infliction of emotional distress. And blah, blah. To prevail on a cause of action for IIED, a plaintiff must establish the following. The conduct must be extreme and outrageous. The conduct must be intentional or reckless. It must cause emotional distress, and the distress must be severe. Moreover, plaintiff's complaint must demonstrate to the court that the conduct of defendants was so outside the bounds of decency that the conduct was atrocious and not tolerated by civilized persons. A thorough reading of the complaint leads the court to conclude again that plaintiffs have failed to plead with clarity and or specificity and cannot demonstrate that defendants' conduct was outrageous or extreme. Once again, this court notes that the alleged YouTube broadcasts have not been quoted or specifically referenced. Without specific statements of defendants vis-a-vis the plaintiffs asserting the IIED claim, this court cannot determine that any statement was so atrocious or outside the bounds of civilized society to have caused harm to plaintiffs. The few quotations purported statements of defendants saying that are contained in the complaint, that Miss Griffin is a tragedy pimp or a grifter, and or that Miss Jackson was worthless and lazy, do not allow the court to conclude that there is a cognizable IIED claim. Further, none of the plaintiffs has pled that actions or statements of defendants have caused them to seek medical diagnosis or treatment. There are only the threadbare, that's a very important word, threadbare allegations that these plaintiffs suffered emotional pain and mental anguish. As such, plaintiffs have failed to establish a prima facie case to recover for IIED, and these claims must be dismissed. Interference with prospective business. Plaintiff Andrew Griffin's purported claim of interference with prospective business also fails for lack of any specific facts to establish this claim. To prevail on a claim of tortious interference with prospective business, Ms. Griffin must establish that she had prospective contractual relations. As we read this little part right here, note that Bullhorn Betty is currently in litigation with Queen Bee, and she claimed the same thing. Did something else happen in the chat that I'm missing that I should be? So she's in litigation with Queen Bee, making the same allegations that, interference with business relations. And currently she's being ordered by the court to submit her proof that Queen Bee caused these contractual issues with, contractual business relations issues. And she has failed to provide that evidence, as far as I know. So, all right, I'll keep reading. Ms. Griffin must establish that she had prospective contractual relations, that defendants acted with purpose or intent to harm Ms. Griffin to prevent those relationships from occurring, that defendants had no justification to act in the manner they did, and that Ms. Griffin suffered actual damages. In Pennsylvania, complaints must be pled with specificity and not simply provide a cursory ground for the tort that defendants is alleged to have violated. The complaint must provide the facts that are essential to the claims raised. Ms. Griffin's allegation pertaining to the purported claim for tortious interference with prospective business is as follows. Defendants' repeated defamatory remarks and encouragement of harassment against Ms. Griffin constitute such improper conduct, preventing her from securing work and maintaining professional relationships. This complaint, like the one in the Foster case, fails to distinguish between the prospective or existing contractual relationship, and fails to set forth any facts that would establish that Ms. Griffin was entering into any contacts with any business, let alone an interference with such contracts. Ms. Griffin fails to list any named entities with which she is contracted or with which she was prospectively going to be contracted. Moreover, this section of the complaint does not identify which of the defendants made statements that interfered with Ms. Griffin's prospective or current business relationship, nor does this section set forth which statements were made vis-a-vis Griffin or when these alleged statements were made. As such, the purported claim of interference with a prospective business relationship is not supported by evidence and is therefore wholly deficient, as Plaintiff Griffin has failed to establish any facts in the complaint as to one or more essential elements of this claim. The defendants are immune from liability under Pennsylvania's Anti-SLAPP statute, and this claim must be dismissed. I'm nobody, but I spent $95 for toys for tots over so many toys. But you know what this Christmas everybody's going to be happy. Well, thank you for all the super chats. I see them rolling in, AK47. That's very kind of you. I know, Misty Blue. No way. Betty lied? Color me shocked. Color me shocked. I'd love to know why people just suddenly stopped talking about Seth, and it's obvious they all did at the same time. That fat bastard is a public figure, period. It's a lot of it is because of this case, Carl, So, okay, let's keep going. Invasion, because we're almost done and I want to get through it. Invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts in false light. Plaintiff Christina O'Donnell is the only plaintiff who purports to state a claim of invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts in false light. Ms. O'Donnell is a public figure who inserted herself into this public controversy of the missing child from Tennessee. She herself is a podcaster who goes by the handle Chasing Crime. Invasion of privacy is a complex tort that has 4 distinct causes. Oh, by the way, I want to back up and say one thing before I go on with this. Did you notice that basically it feels like these plaintiffs are operating under the illusion, or trying to give people the illusion, that they can just go to a court, make a bunch of complaints in a disorganized fashion, and expect some sort of relief. Expect that the court will pick through it, do their case for them. It's the same as expecting to be able to just come on the internet, sit there, fall asleep, and expect donations. Expect people to pay for your life while doing nothing yourself. You just expect to sit there and everything get handed to you and go your way. And they represent it that way to their audiences. And I just hope people know, when you get to the courts, you're in the big leagues. When you're taking your files, you're in the big leagues. You're going as real life as possible, because the outcome could very much harm the person that you are frivolously suing. So accountability is a major issue, and understanding of how the world works is another very, very big issue in this with these plaintiffs. In the complaint, Plaintiff O'Donnell alleges specifically that certain actions violated of sections BD of the restatement, intrusion upon seclusion, appropriation of name or likenesses, and publicity given to private life. The paragraphs relating to this count state that defendant Trudy invaded Ms. O'Donnell's privacy by disclosing private facts, that by disclosing those facts, they placed Ms. O'Donnell in a false light. No paragraphs in the complaint prior to those set forth in Section 10 with respect to the civil claims for invasion of privacy, public disclosure of private facts, and false light contain any facts that specifically support these claims. And the only quotes contained in this portion of the complaint allege that defendant Trude called Ms. O'Donnell a couch potato or a drug addict. The paragraphs in this section, and I just want to remind you that when Barbecue was here earlier, she said she never said those things. And there's no big whoop with calling somebody a couch potato. It's a little bit more of a whoop to call somebody a drug addict. But if you have a reason to believe that, then you're not defaming and you're not being malicious. The paragraphs in this section of the complaint allege that defendant Trude generally invaded Ms. O'Donnell's privacy by disseminating information regarding her sobriety, her history as a human trafficking survivor, and that she had lost a child. There are no specific facts contained in this count or elsewhere in the complaint which demonstrates to the court that defendant Trude disclosed any specific information about Ms. O'Donnell. There was no allegation of the dissemination of any medical records, drug treatment records, or any other private records. As with all prior sections of the complaint, plaintiff fails to identify with any specificity the sections of a YouTube podcast in which these purported statements were made or what the actual statements were. In sum, Plaintiff O'Donnell has failed to establish the essential elements of a claim of invasion of privacy and or cause of action for this count upon which the relief can be granted. As such, defendants are immune from civil liability for this claim under Pennsylvania Anti-SLAPP statute, and the claim must be dismissed. Last, the court addresses the fact as noted herein above, that the complaint identifies At Night Media LLC in the caption and in the identification of the parties, but makes not one factual allegation by or on behalf of At Night, nor does it assert any count or claims against any defendant in this plaintiff's behalf. Therefore, there is no claim by Plaintiff At Night Media LLC as a matter of law. Similarly, and also noted previously, the complaint identifies Dwayne Dog Chapman in the caption and in the identification of the parties, but makes not one factual allegation or claims by any defendant in this plaintiff's behalf. Therefore, there can be no claim by plaintiff Dwayne Dog Chapman as a matter of law. With respect to plaintiff Hong Zhu, all purported counts against the defendants in the complaint are criminal in nature. Further, the purported count under the criminal statute concerning endangering the welfare of a child relates to the missing Tennessee boy, not plaintiff Zhu's child. Therefore, this purported cause of action fails as a matter of law. Don't use missing kids' name for frivolous lawsuits to be a law pest. Okay? Once again, wait a minute. Similarly, the complaint alleges counts on behalf of plaintiffs Zhu, Jackson, Griffin, and O'Donnell for violations of section blah blah, the criminal section of the statute prohibiting cyberstalking a child. Once again, the allegations in the complaint regarding purported cyberstalking pertaining to the missing Tennessee child, not any of the specific plaintiff's children. Therefore, these claims fail as a matter of law for this reason as well. In sum, the court is constrained to agree with the defendant's summary. Although the text from Plaintiff Mathis, so this is the court basically stipulating to everything that was written by one of the defendant's lawyers, okay? this is so humiliating and so humiliating for Lesniak, the way this ruling played out. Listen, in sum, the court is constrained to agree with defendant's summary. Although the text from Plaintiff Mathis is clarifying in its brutal honesty, we don't need to prove that this lawsuit is precisely the kind that this legislature sought to curb. The complaint itself has all the hallmarks of a SLAPP. It's 83 pages, 350 paragraphs, and 300 pages of unattached exhibits. The complaint utterly fails, to adhere to the most basic rules of pleading in the state, forcing the defendants and this court to wade through its nonsensical claims to decipher the nature of the allegations against the plaintiff's claims aimed at defendants' right to free speech to allege. Fail to allege of any kind of requisite particularity the content of the actual statements made, despite the fact that many, if not most, of defendant's statements, as plaintiff's counsel admitted to during oral argument, are recorded. Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute provides that a party may move to recover attorney fees, court costs, and expenses of litigation under Section 840, blah, blah, blah. Defendants Trude and Sinks requested an award in their anti-SLAPP motions. Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute is clear that if, as here, a court finds that a party is immune under Section blah, then the court shall reward the immune party attorney fees, court costs, and expenses of litigation jointly and severally against each adverse party that asserted the cause of action. In light of the court's findings herein, including but not limited to that the defendants are immune from civil liability for the claims attempted to be pled in the complaint, the court must grant the defendant's request for such an award. While Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute does not preclude punitive damages, this court declines to reward such damages at this time. That could very well change after, and this is my own edification, that could very, very well change after the hearing. In light of the foregoing findings and analysis, it is hereby ordered and decreed as follows. Defendants' motions pursuant to blah, 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 to dismiss the causes of action asserted against them based on the defendant's protected public expression immunity are granted. The complaint is dismissed in its entirety with prejudice. Plaintiffs are responsible and jointly and severally for and shall pay defendants' attorney's fees, court costs, and expenses of litigation and costs as required by blah, 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 by the court, Kelly D. Eckel, judge. So there you have it, you guys. I don't know. I actually think that people, with prejudice, choo-choos, mommy, with prejudice. So that any of these people believe that they could get a different result somewhere else, not only is in literal insanity, but it shows that they brought this case to be a sex pest, to do lawfare, to totally frivolously, completely vexatiously. And I think the way the court just, obliterated every single argument that they tried to make. I mean, they obliterated it. In most court rulings, you'll see the court agree with one or two of the losing party's arguments. They'll say, "Oh, I consider this argument and it's a good one, but here's why you don't get it." Or they grant, they say that on this cause of action you win, but on these other cause of actions you don't win. This is a judicial slam down. This is, and they didn't take it lightly, obviously, because it's precedent setting, not lawmaking, but precedent setting. So there you have it. I hope the plaintiffs remember this before they attempt to use the courts more frivolously. They're just going to continue getting the same result again, which is literal insanity. And you'll not only lose in the court, but you'll lose in the court of public opinion, because people don't like law pests. We don't like law pests. Here's your, and just for the super chats that I received, here's another reminder of a law pest. Rounds. But the ultimate, this woman is the definition of a law pest.
I don't understand, since both of you do true crime and you follow court, how either of you think this is proper.
Doing this, right, because it's mentally stressful, right? So
then I would have to shut down the internet.
I'm sorry.
And that's the same thing. The same thing applies. Any judge who's going to hear any of these cases and sides with a plaintiff who's taking one of these people to court is going to just have to shut down the internet to make them happy. So anyway, that's about it. I'm just looking through chat to see if there's anything specifically I need to respond to. Yes, they should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed. Who color me gray like her meat? Okay. All right. Well, we will just leave it there. I just wanted to get this on the record. And, if these plaintiffs or other people with similar intentions think that they're going to use the court in this way, there's going to be another group of us who are going to get behind fighting it, because it's fucking ridiculous. It's a self-entitled waste of time. You don't get to just submit your claim to the court and have them be your mommy and tell the other, the other kids to go home to their mommies and daddies. This is the grown up. This is real time. This is big time. Okay. So I thank you all for listening to me through it. I'm going to share my donations link if anyone feels like donating, and just supporting the channel in a different way. But also, I always appreciate just you being here and liking and subscribing my videos and my live streams. And I will be going live on Sunday reading, continuing to read the Kohberger book. At this point, we're on like chapter 29 or 30 or something like that. It's a really good book. It's a very good book. So I encourage you all to join that. And again, I shared Grannies and Barbecues links earlier, but I'm going to do it again. Go to their channels, and if you are so inclined, contribute to their legal fundraisers, because they don't deserve to get shake down like this. This is, as I just read, it's a totally frivolous, completely menacing, malicious set of lawsuits, and shouldn't be entertained without a fight. So again, thanks for all being here, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye. Oh, and thanks Barbecue for coming up on panel.